Hello?
I mean, they've been working their butts off, and they're gonna buy uniforms for them, and all that.
Send them to, say talk to Kent. Talk to Kent. That's right.
That's right. They wanna build their own field,
Exactly.
that's their problem.
He's going to have to be responsible.
He did it for Little League, yeah. Well, I forgot who it was calling me. Cassidy told us to call me. I forgot who they are now, but
Jurgensen's all I know.
no, it wasn't Skyler, it was somebody else. But
We're out.
they said that Wiggins and Buell were for it. I said, how do they know that? How do you know they're for it?
And I got 21.
We haven't voted on nothing. They said, well, they heard they were. Yeah,
5:59. Oh, there it is.
exactly.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 6 p.m. on Thursday of the 28th of March. This is our regular city council meeting. Meetings are available to watch on our YouTube channel. Search for the City of Bruceville-Eddy and click the subscribe button. Please mute your phones and computers to avoid any interference during this meeting. We thank you for that. I just want to say thank y'all again for being here. It's always good to see citizens out there and people needing help, and we try to help as much as we can. And it's just good to see everybody. It really is. And so at this time, I'd ask if y'all would stand for prayer. Our Father, we come to you with thankful hearts for bringing us together today as we prepare meetings together. I ask that you fill each of our hearts with your presence. Help us to use the time we have together wisely. I ask that you would remind us to place one another's needs above our own. Please remove any selfish gain from among us and help us to seek good of those around us. Grant us patience toward each other and help us to respect each other and our inputs. We can all learn from one another, and none of us is more important than the next as we have various conversations. I ask that you would help us to communicate well. If there are any misunderstandings, I ask that you would help us to clear them up. May we be quick to hear and slow to speak. May we be even slower to take offense and quick to show grace and forgiveness. May our speech be seasoned with salt and our hearts filled with grace. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, and one indivisible. You may have a seat. Thank you very much. Excuse me. Community announcements. Do we have any community announcements that we need to talk about?
Mayor,
Kent?
I'll kick things off. Thank you
Okay.
so much. So we do have a few things happening in April. It's going to be a very busy month for us. Starting off tomorrow, City Hall will be closed in observance of Good Friday. Then later in April, we've got the first bingo at the United Methodist Church. That kicks off at 6:30, correct? Graham, got that one right? So they welcome you out to join in that fun. Should be a good time. This is going to be their second month in a row doing this, so they hope to make it a regular thing. And then, of course, we've got the April 8th total solar eclipse. So if you haven't been planning for that yet, make sure you check out our city website and our frequently asked questions. Kind of helps you walk through some of the things you and your family should be doing to prepare. BE Ball Club, their opening day is April the 13th. I'm not sure what time they're kicking things off. At 9 a.m.? 9 a.m. So that'll be a fun event. So go ahead and make plans to head out that way. And then Spring Fest is going to be April 20th. And that kicks off at 9 a.m. as well on Saturday. However, the night before that Friday at Duty Park, they're going to be having the annual Coaches versus Coaches baseball game. And that is at 6 p.m. with concessions, correct? That's good.
Okay, is that it? Anybody else have any other announcements they want to share with us? Nothing else coming up? Okay, we'll move right along. Number 3, it's our citizens presentation. The City Council welcomes public comments at this point on items not specifically listed on the agenda. Speakers must sign up before the meeting begins. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes each. The council cannot respond to matters not listed on the agenda without a future meeting. Do we have anybody signed up? No. Okay. All right. Number 4, subdivision ordinance balance request at 1011 Park Lake Drive. Council to discuss, consider, and possibly take action on a request by Owen? Am I saying that right? Ewan? Okay, all right. Hera for a variance to Section 1, subsection A, items J of subdivision ordinance, Appendix A, and to allow a property subdivision to have a lot width totaling less than 80 feet for property generally located at 1007 Bruceville, Texas, 76630. Kent, you want to say something on that, and then we'll get them to come up.
Mayor, thank you so much. So this is going to be a request here for Park Lake Drive. The address is actually 1007 Park Lake Drive, Eddy, Texas. That was an error there on the agenda. It is currently within the city limits. And then additional property that is owned by the applicants here is within our ETJ, but adjacent to those parcels. So this is a property owner initiated platting process, and it's really just all about the need to upgrade a septic system. Some of the newer regulations, and when I say new, I don't mean within the last couple of years, I mean since these parcels in the Shady Shores area were originally broken out. Some of those new requirements for septic systems say that you have to have at least half an acre of land, and that systems cannot cross any property lines. So it's kind of put these property owners in a little bit of a pickle trying to figure out how they're going to upgrade their system and still meet our subdivision ordinances. The property owner is seeking to subdivide the land, and talked a little bit about that, to meet their family's current and future needs. So this is the application for the variance to request to allow for a lot frontage up against a public right-of-way for less than 80 feet, which is what our subdivision ordinance requires. So over here we've got a breakdown map, and this one was provided by the property owner. What they're looking to do is their current house is right here at I believe 1011 Park Lake. And they need to upgrade that septic system. So in order to get that half an acre, this is land they already own, and they'd like to tie that all in with these two current lots. And then over here, land that they currently own, plus this parcel up against Shady Shores that they acquired a couple years ago, they'd like to connect all of this together for a future home site and have this area here just as a driveway. But as you can see, that is only 50 feet. This is a two-step process. So normally we would kick things off with a preliminary plat. These folks, weren't necessarily fully aware of all of our rules and regulations when they got started with this one. So I thought it more prudent to bring the variance on the front end just to see if this is something that council is looking to move forward with before they spend the additional money required that's going to be required as part of the preliminary and final plat process. So it's staff's opinion here that this variance request will not be detrimental to the health and safety of our current and future property owners or their neighboring properties, and we recommend approval. And with that, y'all are
Would you
welcome
like
to come
say
up and speak.
something? Tell us who you are.
Hi everyone, I'm Christian and this is Hara family. So we get to these issues when we start dealing with the septic. We are not currently know with all those problems. The thing is, the septic what I have right now, it needs almost every 3 or 4 months I need to call someone and clean it, and I just want to update it with the new system. And the person who wants to do the job, he says, I need to plot. It's no way. So it's plotting or no septic. And I love that land. I don't want to sell it, all of them, just for that reason. I would like to just divide them in that portion. And later for the future, I would like to build a house back then and have that road, which is 50 by 100. Use it in purpose just to be a road, not building houses or... And then, like I said, there's no purpose to build a house in 50 feet when you have 9 acres in the back there. So you want to enjoy the land, and that one just be a road with the gates, and that's pretty much what we like to complete that step so we can proceed with the rest of them.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions or any comments?
I move that we approve the variance.
Okay. Mr. Prater made a motion to approve this, and Councilwoman McLaughlin seconded. All in favor? Unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for coming out. We'll be in touch next week on the next steps.
All right. At this time, we're going to move number 21 to talk about next. And 21 is the Friendly Oaks and West Ridge water plants, repairs to groundwater well. Council discuss, consider, and possibly take action to address electrical and or mechanical issues at the Friendly Oaks and West Ridge groundwater plants sites that has resulted in their inoperable, including the approval of any needs repaired and related expenditures.
Thank you, Mayor. Folks, Friendly Oaks is still not being very friendly to us. This groundwater well is back down again, and it pains me to say it after being in operation for 3 weeks. So now, just to rehash, this is a total of 8 separate motors that have gone out on this site since December of 2022. The motor, we haven't even gotten around to pulling it. Contractors, consultants, engineers, they all seem to be dumbfounded as to what is causing the motors at this site to continuously fail. At some point throughout this process, and I've got some timelines here if we need to refresh ourselves, but we thought we were getting close to a solution. We thought we had gotten some of the big issues knocked out, but it doesn't seem to be the case there. Unfortunately, in addition to this, our sensophone that we just had installed did not even alert staff of any of the issues. So we've got to get with our electrical contractor on that one to see what is going on with that. Just to point out here, a storm did roll through the area the night before, but there are no signs of any lightning strikes at the facility. And in addition to that, we've had motors go out outside of storm events. So still confounded here. We're still waiting on warranty information from Franklin on the last motor that we pulled, and we do have Chris Browder here from Jurgensen who might be able to address that a little bit better, but that's been 5 months now to date. And I won't go through all the timeline, but just in case council wants to go back and review that, this is when we started here, December 26th of 2022, the hard freeze that occurred. And we've been dealing with issues ever since.
Yeah.
So right now, talking about the next steps, again, this just happened on Friday, so I wanted to make sure that it got on council so we could at least begin discussions. But we don't have a whole lot of information for you. We have received one quote for a different motor type. But I would like to gather some additional quotes from other vendors for this, for a different motor. Also kind of want to take a look at maybe switching our pump and motor type up completely if that's possible, and maybe look at some different options that might make the maintenance in the future a little bit more feasible. And then in addition to this, we sat down as staff immediately after this occurred, and we're realizing now that we may not have this well back in operation before the summer months. And as you know,
It's going to be a hot.
we've got the water back. It's raining, but we're expecting a very hot summer. So we've got to start preparing. So what we've done is we've proactively taken one of the booster pumps offline at Talbert Well. We got that over to Jurgensen this week, so they could take a look at it and make sure that the impeller's good, all the seals are good, and that we're not going to have one of those go down on us in the summer. Because right now, Talbert Well is our workhorse. It's pulling up water from the aquifer, and it's pushing all of the water that goes to the northern portion of our system. So everything was great with that pump and motor. We'll be getting that installed back next week, and then we'll be doing the same thing with its partner. So at this time, Chris, you want to come up and kind of speak to some of these issues?
Kent, did everybody get a copy of the quote that I sent?
Yes, sir, they did.
Okay. First of all, thank y'all for having me. If you've got a copy of my quote, if you look over at the top on the right-hand side,
Would you mind speaking a little bit more into the microphone?
sorry, can you hear me?
Get close to it.
It's particularly
Sometimes
like
you
that.
almost have to, you think you're going to be kissing it the way it looks, you know.
On our quote, on every quote we send out or estimate, even on our invoices, it states, new well equipment is covered by manufacturer's warranties, and these warranties are the responsibility of the manufacturers. Labor warranty is 30 days from installation of new equipment. This well's been installed for more than 30 days, but it didn't run for more than 30 days. I'm going to warranty the labor. I will eat the pulling and the setting in an effort to try to help the city of Bruceville-Eddy. This is as much my headache as it is yours, trust me. My phone rings and it says Kent, and I cringe. So, I mean, we want to put this behind us. The drive does show an input fault, and if I remember, the electrician said it had several input faults, which would be from the input side of the power. Could that have caused the motor to fail? Sure. Could we have a lightning strike 2 miles down the road that traveled down the line and finally grounded down hole? Sure. We won't know till the motor's on the ground, and possibly not even until it goes back to the factory. As Kent said, we sent one in October 31st. I checked on it again yesterday, and Franklin says it's still pending. They're still trying to pinpoint their problem. I did speak to the regional sales manager for Franklin Electric a couple of months ago, and he admitted to me in confidence that they did find a problem with their 8-inch high-temp motors, which is what you have. Nobody else will admit that, and I probably shouldn't be telling you that, but I've always promised Kent that I would be upfront and honest about everything that I do. Having said that, if we're able to pull this motor, we will go back with an SME high-temp motor, which hasn't been available to me until the last year. I don't have a lot of history with it, but it's what I'm using now because I'm not putting another Franklin back in a hole anywhere, not just here. We've had multiple failures at multiple sites. Is that the problem? I don't know, but that's what we're trying to do to help. The SME is a lot cheaper. I've cut my margin as much as I can cut it to try to help. Excuse me. You'll notice on the quote that the motor I quoted you was $16,100. The Franklin high temp motor is over $30,000. So we've cut the price in half. partially because SME is cheaper and partially because I've lowered my margin. Again, I know we've all met out there. We've upgraded the electrical, we've upgraded the drive, we've done everything we know to do, or that I know to do anyway. And I know we had an electrical engineer at one point out there looking at it. I have not heard his input on this failure. I would like to think that it's lightning, but I can't promise that. But we did have a storm. We do have several input faults, which is what that would indicate to me. All I can say is I'll do the best I can to help. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them to the best of my ability.
Mr. Wiggins?
Okay, on the lightning issue, is there protections in place that if there is lightning out there, that it'll knock something else out before it gets to the motor?
Yes and no. You have surge suppressors, okay?
Okay,
But you have to realize lightning travels at the speed of light. There's no electronic equipment on the market that the city of Bruceville-Eddy could afford that can react that fast. NASA has stuff that reacts that fast, but there's nothing in the water well market that will. If it takes a lightning strike, there's always got to be a small delay, because when a motor starts, it has a huge inrush of current to make the rotor start to turn. If it was so sensitive that it kicked off every time it had a surge, the motor would never run. Does that make sense?
yes, sir. What about the, when you pull it, will you be able to tell whether it's lightning struck it or whether the motor overheated?
Maybe. If there is a hole in the side of it, like we found
Right.
2 or 3 times ago, yes, I would firmly state, that is a power surge. I can't say lightning because I wasn't standing there when
Right.
it happened, but I can tell you it's a power surge because that's the only thing strong enough to blow through the stainless steel casing on the side of the motor.
Okay, another thing is, if it's not lightning, let's say the motor overheats for whatever reason, isn't there some type of protection also if that motor gets too hot, then it'll cut the motor off?
No, sir.
There's no such protection.
This-
If the motor gets too hot, it'll cut off.
This motor does not have any type of heat sensors that would do that.
Do other motors, this
Sure.
motor you're talking about putting in or recommended,
No.
does it?
No.
It don't either. Okay, what about the depth of that well? Because from what little I know about it, and I've talked to people that know a lot more than me, that when that pump turns on, being a 100 horsepower pump, it's gonna suck a lot of water. So if it sucks it down low, then maybe it's not down in there deep enough. Couldn't that cause the motor to overheat?
No, because you have protection against that. If it pulls the water level down far enough that it breaks suction and it's not moving water, then the amps of the motor will go way down and you will get a low current trip on your drive. I'm sorry? Yeah, it would cavitate the pump, but the cavitation's not going to trip it. The low amperage will trip it on underload.
Would it help if we went deeper
No.
down in that? It wouldn't hurt though, would it?
No.
Yeah.
The only thing that it might change, and I don't have my books with me,
Yes, sir.
but cable size is only good to a certain footage at a certain horsepower.
Okay.
If we go down too much, and a whole roll of cable.
Right.
Our records indicate, and I'd have to go back and double check everything, but our records indicate that the pump is set at 927 feet, And when the pump is running and the water level pulls down, the pumping level is 805. So every time we pull one.
Now, Chris, we did have a, I guess the screen caved in a little bit there.
Yeah, that's not from cavitation. What that's from, and we have since really thin metal just made to keep rust and debris out of your pump. The problem is with the temperature of this water,
Okay.
it makes that metal hot and it gets, you know, when you heat metal, it gets soft and it sucks it in because your velocity going through those little bitty 1/4-inch holes is about 20 feet per second. And that gets hot. And so what we've started doing now at Jurgensen Pump is we take the factory screen off of it on hot water wells and we put expanded metal, which is much thicker.
Okay. That's a good explanation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did have one more, Mayor. Sorry. Is there any way we could switch to, say, a turbine pump and motor here? And,
Sure.
And get that motor on top. That way, even if we do have some issues going on,
Yeah,
we
it's
can
possible.
service it easily. Is
It's
the
more
cost different?
costly
Very
Is it-
costly.
Quite a
because
bit costly.
right now what you have is you have pipe that runs all the way to the, you know, to the pump, and then a pump and then a motor. If you go to a line shaft turbine, your motor is above ground. The cost of the motor is going to be, you know, a little cheaper than the submersible motor. But then you also have to have inside your column all the way down what we call an oil tube, which is like a 3.5 by 1.5 tube with a bearing every 5 feet. And then inside that, you have your stainless steel shafting all the way to the bottom. And then you have to have an oiler, which pre-lubes that comes on, 10 minutes before the pump, and it starts dripping oil into this tube to lubricate all the bearings all the way down, and it will drip the whole time it's running. And so that also creates a maintenance item because they've got to make sure that reservoir stays full of oil. If they don't, the pump will lock up, break the shaft. So is it possible? Yes.
So
People used to do it a lot, but the cost, people figured out the submersibles were much cheaper.
We had a question for out there first. And then I'll get you and then whoever's down here.
I'm Rick Edmiston. My question is, what happens when we have a power loss on your pump?
An actual power loss?
Yes, because we here in Bruceville-Eddy, a lot of times we'll have, like last Saturday, power just went off Saturday morning. About 20 minutes later, it was back on. But what happens when that power drops, the power goes off and the pump drops out?
Shouldn't hurt it.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Prater?
On that turbine, how often, if them seals go out in the bottom of that, does it put oil into the water?
Yes,
Okay, so yeah.
but it is, and you're going to put oil into the water constantly, okay? Because you're dripping oil in, and that oil has to go out somewhere. But it's food-grade mineral oil. It won't hurt anything.
Oh,
Okay.
It's NSF approved.
I had a question down here, Mr. Wiggins.
Do you have any of them in your operations, other places? Do you have
Sure.
any of those?
Sure, we have several. We have 2 in our shop right now. I'd be more than happy if you want to come take a look at them.
How do they work at these other places that you have them? I mean, do they have many issues with them?
You know,
And
generally,
if so, what issues do they normally have?
the biggest issue with them is somebody lets them run out of oil and they seize up and break a shaft. We see that more than anything. But as far as longevity, if they're installed properly, the best thing about them is you can fix the motor without pulling the pump because it's on top.
Right.
But it's it would still be the same pump. It's just a different configuration.
How much more would you say it would cost us to do that versus?
To start out fresh
Just
and brand
rough.
new, because now
Right.
every piece of pipe you have is junk
Right.
at that point, because it's not the same type of pipe, okay? So you'd have to have a whole string of pipe, a whole string of tubing, and a whole string of shafting, and instead of looking at $17,000, you're over 100.
Could we reuse any of that pipe and stuff that we pull out at maybe our
Not
West
in-
Ridge?
Not in this well, but
No.
yeah,
Now, Westridge, I believe, is a smaller diameter.
it is.
Is it?
Yes, yeah.
Or Talbot? I don't know. I mean,
I don't know that one off the top of my
yeah,
We can, if you needed one joint or something, the problem is if it lays there very long, you're not gonna wanna use it.
It get
Yeah.
rusty, get all kinds of junk in it.
You would get so much bacteria inside of it that you'd never be able to get a back T sample back. If you were gonna use it right away, I would say, yeah, use it, that'd be great. But if it lays on the ground for 2 or 3 years till Tolbert goes out the next time, then I would not recommend using it.
okay. Okay, what about I don't guess he can address any of the electrical issues out there.
That would have to be the electric.
Okay.
No,
but-
sir, unless it has something to do with the wiring of the motor. That's
Yeah.
really what Chris is responsible for.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll talk about that to you in just a second when we get through.
I would be more than happy to put together a quote for a line shaft turbine,
Yeah.
set the same depth, to pump the same conditions, and get it back to you. This is Thursday, tomorrow's Good Friday, middle to end of next week.
That'd be great,
Okay,
Chris. Yeah, I think we'd love to explore
Yeah,
that too.
I'd like-
Now, y'all were also talking about lead times. The equipment that I have quoted right now, I can have a motor in 2 to 3 days. So if you're worried about summer, what you might want to think about doing, and I'm just throwing this out there to see where it lays, but put this well back in service this way next week, and then put it on your agenda to order the equipment, because if I order all that column pipe and shafting and tubing, you're probably looking at about 8 to 12 weeks on delivery. And summer's right around the corner. But put this back in service, and let's get the equipment ordered with a December installation date.
If that's what they wanted, yeah.
That's, I'm just offering that as a
Yes, sir.
possibility to get you through the summer.
We thank you for that.
Appreciate that, but one of the issues I would have with that is, we put it back in there in 2 days, you said we could have it back and going, then what if something else happens? And now we're blowing another motor out.
We're
Yeah,
going to
you
go
know,
with a
and
different motor,
Maybe
right?
some electrical issues we need to address here before we turn that thing back on and we.
But you would be
and-
using a different brand of pump.
A different brand of motor.
Motor,
There's nothing
excuse
wrong
me.
with your
The
pump.
pump's good. I mean, motor, sorry.
And I did not quote cable,
Yeah.
because I'm assuming the cable is okay, but we won't know that until
And
we
you're
get it.
offering to do the pulling and all
The
of that stuff
labor,
for free.
the labor at
for
my
free.
expense. I'll cover all the labor charges to pull it and set it. Again, you might have an additional expense of the cable. If it did take a lightning strike, a lot of times your cable will go bad as well, because you've got all that voltage going downhole. Sometimes it affects it, sometimes it doesn't. So it's a possibility.
And just to remind council, we are working on different quotes. We probably expect those over the next couple weeks from different vendors. But at the same time, now that we're going to have not one, but now 2 motors sent to Franklin by Jurgensen, we should expect some credit coming down the line should Franklin warranty one of those motors.
And we issue that credit at 100% of the purchase price. In other words, if I get credit from Franklin, whatever your motor cost was, $30,700 and something, whatever it was, you will get 100% of that credit back. And if the city so desires, we will cut you a check instead of just leaving a credit on the books.
Okay.
And just so everybody knows, the booster pump for Tolbert that they dropped off yesterday is ready, and I've already let Gene know, and he'll get it picked up.
All right, thank you.
Any
Is there
other questions?
Any other questions?
Well, thank you for coming, sir.
No?
All right, thank you.
Sounds good, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Before we hop into some additional questions here, I did want to address one more thing. So Westridge, we haven't really messed with Westridge as we've been focusing on Friendly Oaks. We expect some of the same electrical issues over there. However, the pump and motor are installed, it's ready to go. It just hasn't been hooked up to the electrical components and been reinitialized. What we'd like to do out there, and for two reasons. One, we'd like to get it back online, but we'd also like to have an electrician or electrical engineer out there to look at our Westridge site. We know that there's electrical issues. We've seen sparking on some of the fuse boxes, so we're not super confident. But even if we get this thing back online, one, we have to sample for PFAS at some point. So we could immediately go ahead and grab one of those samples that we're required to do. And then two, even if this thing gets back online, and I'm thinking worst case scenario here for 2-3 months, that would be ideal. We're still looking at a pretty low rate for the amount of gallons that we're going to be pulling up here versus Bluebonnet. Not quite the same. If you consider all the factors like electricity, setting the well back in, you're probably looking at $10 a gallon, or $10 per 1,000 gallons, compared to $3.50 per Bluebonnet. But it would give us some relief, and we definitely have the capacity to pull from the aquifer because we haven't been running these wells. So just something to consider with that one. And then, of course, we're just going to continue to gather information and bring this back to council with more proposals at a future meeting.
Isn't Bluebonnet going to be shutting down for long because of, not shutting down, but changing a bunch of their stuff? Getting some
We
more
got
water
that one
to-
knocked out. Yes, ma'am. Early
Okay.
January.
In January, okay, good. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, Mr. Wiggins, I'm sorry,
Okay,
Tony. Oh,
okay.
Sorry.
On this, as I look at this sky report that you just give us, it looks like there's 7 different issues that they have that the electric company that performed that service out there didn't do properly.
That's correct.
Okay, so one of my questions is, why did we put it back online if they wasn't in compliance with our electrical engineer?
So our electrical engineer issued that report, and then after conferring, sent us an email saying that that it should be okay to get it back online. So with that, we put the well back online.
Okay, I think we need to do everything, these 7 items, we need to get that done. And maybe we need to look at another electric company to do our work in the future. Because it looks like this one that we have isn't doing as good work. So I would like to see that. And as far as the, I'd like to get some different quotes on different pumps, and also going with the, I don't remember what you call it, with the pump on the top, motor on the
Turbine.
Turbine. Maybe get some quotes for that as well. But the way it's wrote up on the agenda, I'm not for giving a blank check.
Understood. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. I am not asking for any recommendations or any expenditure approvals at this time. So I understand that. We need more information.
Yes.
Would you mind coming up to the microphone real quick, sir? That's just so everybody at home can hear you.
Yeah, I just want to ask, they don't have nothing for lining, like the ground, to absorb? Because what I understand, the lining make a hole in the motor, right?
So-
So for the lining, you normally, all the houses or motors, I used to work at SpaceX. We have a bunch of pumps there. We working with powerful pumps where they need to take down the power from the rocket, all that flow. So he used to rebuild those pumps.
Well, we
And
have
the
our
normal-
lightning rods, we have it in our ground and stuff, but
But the ground rod wasn't done properly, according to the
Yeah.
electrical engineer. Anyway.
yeah, we need
But,
something.
but we, at this point of the game, we don't know for sure whether lightning hit that because we hadn't hit that,
Pulled it out.
motor or not because we hadn't pulled the well yet. So
Okay.
we won't know that until it's pulled. Now, if we pull that well, then like that man said a while ago, if it's a big old hole in there, that's good indication that yes, it's lightning.
Right.
And just to clarify, the faults that we received them in tandem that morning, and they were all low input faults on the VFD. Outside of that, the VFD's been working great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're talking about one of these turbine pumps. Let's talk about how often these pumps come on and how long they run. Do you know that information? The ones we have now?
Oh, our current submersible pumps?
Yes. Do you,
No, sir.
I mean, they're coming on every 10 minutes or every hour and running for an hour, just,
Well, a lot of them we're running by hand, so we'll manually turn them on and turn them off as needed based on demand issues. But this one here, it has the VFD and it's meant to kick on as needed.
okay,
It probably runs more in the afternoon.
right. Well, just checking because your run time and going to a turbine type pump would change things as how much you'd have to keep checking the oil level to keep the bearings on the shaft lubricated.
Yep. Thank you.
That guy leave.
Okay. Any other questions? No?
I'll make a motion though. I'll make a motion that, that Kent get with, different vendors and find out, about different motors, submersible motors, and then also the turbine, what it would cost us totally to go in there and put turbine in instead of the submersible pump that we have. And, total cost for everything, and then also to get with our electrical engineer, maybe, and get, maybe another vendor to perform our electrical work out there at the Friendly Oaks, and maybe get them to also, who is that, SKE?
SKE.
Yeah, SKE to go ahead and go over to the West Ridge and see what they would
Yep.
recommend for the West Ridge also while we're doing this in one motion.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll say.
Okay, Mr. Prater second that we're going to have Kent get some quotes on the turbine and on the merge type stuff for the cost, and to get with the electric engineers to see if we can get that checked out. Okay? Okay, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you.
Hey, and Kent, can we get a hold of that guy we just talked to from Jergens? Can we ask him where the closest turbine is around here? Maybe we can go talk to them people and see how
Sure.
things work
He
out.
said
Some
he could, he
references
said
on
he
that.
would show us.
He
yeah.
said he had two
Two of them,
he
yeah.
could show us.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to see.
I'd like to see
Yeah,
more
that is-
operation on that.
Yeah, and then he has some customers that have a couple.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Now we're gonna go right along, and number 5, Police Chief Report. Chief Dorsey?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Evening, Mayor and Council and citizens. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'd like to share with y'all our police department report from February of '24. For the police department, we had a total of 87 calls for service, reports to include arrest, offense, and incident, a total of 3, criminal offense arrest, total of 2, crash reports, total of 6, citations and warnings, 179, 79 citations, 100 warnings. Also for the month, the police department, we conducted 170 security checks, 20 school zone enforcement activities, 50 neighborhood patrol activities, and 43 directed traffic enforcement activities. Also have our call type report breakdown and our citations and warnings breakdown. Also, I'd like to share our school resource officer report for the month of February. Officer Steiner had 18 calls for service, 102 security checks, citations and warnings, 6 citations, arrests 1, and canine checks 2. Then I also have her call type breakdown as well for the month, or activity report for the month. Then I also prepared a city ordinance enforcement report. It's changed a little bit since I did this report. I've added a little bit more to it. But since we don't have anyone doing code enforcement, I've picked back up, the police department enforcing city ordinances and a lot of the same things that Thomas was doing. We have the ability to enforce city ordinances and take enforcement action, write citations, things like that. So far, over the last month, or case-wise, for high grass and weeds, 23, rubbish 17, junk vehicles 6, dangerous buildings 4, cargo shipping containers 1, and then accessory building violations 2.
Any questions, anyone?
As far as reports, I think that's about everything I have for y'all.
Thank you, Chief. All right, no questions? Thank you, Chief, we appreciate you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, number 6, our Public Works Director report. And Gene is not here. His wife was sick, so he had to leave. So do you have his report, Kent? Do you have a report or anything you want to talk about?
Not specifically, but I can certainly try my best to answer any of the questions that council might have on his
On his
report.
report? Does anyone have any question on Gene's report?
No.
Oh, Mr. Wiggins? Okay.
More of a comment is that I did notice that our water loss went down about 12% from last month, so we're heading the right direction on that.
Yes, sir.
It's still, nearly 32%, but at least it went down 12%. But other than that, well, that's all I had.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, we're moving right along. Number 7, engineers report. Kent?
One other thing.
yes, sir.
I'm
No,
sorry.
no, that's okay.
Well, you know what? I don't know if y'all noticed it, but they have a water under the water loss. They did a breakdown, and I really liked that. So if you look at that breakdown, that shows you about where some of that water loss goes. Not necessarily water loss, but say, for example, the water here at City Hall and at the police department and duty park, 'cause, we pay for that too, and the fire department, Flushing County. So it gives all that breakdown, so I like that.
Okay.
Well, that's
pass
a
it
good
on.
report.
We'll
Thank
pass
you.
it on to him. Thank you. All right, engineer report?
Same drill on this one. I can certainly answer any questions with the engineering report. I will just go ahead and point out that they had the backup team doing the report this month due to some absences. And so you'll see in there that they went ahead and included some of the stuff that had already been hashed out in the month previously, like the water well. Y'all had already made a site selection on that one, and they repeated that. But the other information in there should be pretty new and relevant.
Okay. All right, Ms. Wiggins?
Under that, page 1 of that report, the water meter feasibility, you know, something that we need to make note of is, you know, it says we send an updated meter capacity via email for the Bethany pressure plane, indicating 55 additional meters remain before running out of capacity. So we're getting close to capacity out there. And did we get them, because it says we'd like to receive an updated meter Excel file to confirm our meter counts are correct? Did we get them that?
No, sir, not yet.
Okay, I think is some reason why.
We had provided them with a Excel from the data we pulled from Encode in the past. However, it's one of those things that we don't do on a regular basis. And so the last time we tried to pull that information, there's several fields that aren't transferring over the GIS or the GPS coordinates. It's like 100 or so accounts. And so that's incomplete data, and they're asking for the whole thing refreshed. And so we're trying to work through that issue.
Do we know what we need to do to work through that issue?
Not yet, sir.
Is there anybody that we can contact that might help us work through it?
I'm sure there is.
Okay.
Yes, sir. The last time we had this issue, we actually sent staff out into the field to track those lacking GPS coordinates, but we've kind of grown since then, so these are a lot of the newer accounts.
Okay. Well, I just don't want to hold them up. I'd like for us to see us to try to push this a little harder than maybe what we have been.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's all.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any more questions? If not, we'll move on to the city administrator's report. Kent Manton.
All right, Mayor and Council, thank you so much. Kick things off here. 115 Hungry Hill Road, after about a year or so of processing this, is going up for auction. So if you know anybody who's interested in some raw land here in Bruceville-Eddy, that one will be issued through Renee Bates beginning in April and ending in April. There's some specific requirements for this since it's an auction of public land, so you'll have to visit the website to get all the details on that. But feel free to reach out to me if you or anybody you know has any questions about that process. So kudos to the court. Municipal Court has won an award, officially one of the 2023 MTSI award winners. Big shout out to Danielle McGrew, who's no longer working for us, but she really headed up some of our traffic safety reduction initiatives last year that allowed us to be named this winner. So myself and Laura, we're going to be heading down to San Antonio next week to accept the award on behalf of the city. Kudos to Esther and Judge Madison as well, yes. Laura, for their help in this as well. Just as a reminder, we do have a job posting right now for the community development specialist, which includes that code enforcement responsibilities, animal control services, and building inspections. Waco-McLennan County Health Public District, I'll just kind of breeze through that one there to save us a little bit of time, but I can certainly answer any questions that you have. And we'll get on to the good stuff here, which is the sewer system. So this past week, we did receive the all clear from USDA to take this sewer system project back out to bid, which is very exciting. As everybody remembers, we previously took this out in December, got some numbers that we just couldn't quite work with. So the idea is to come back with a base bid and alternative bids for further consideration. Got to give kudos to Tabor and Associates. USDA had requested additional taskers to complete before taking this back out to bid, but after a couple phone calls, he was able to get those actionable items moved to after the bid, which made a lot more sense. So happy to deal with that. So the current plan is to advertise these bids on March 28th and April 4th, and we will be opening them back up on April the 18th, 10 a.m. right here in City Hall. Please join us if you have nothing better else to do that day. Meanwhile, city staff, the mayor, we've been hosting discussions with Congressman Pete Sessions' office on some congressional appropriations. We know that we still have a shortfall on the sewer system and that we're going to need some additional money for this. We're also working with our financial advisor. They've created a pro forma for the debt service, and we'll probably be scheduling a meeting of the Infrastructure Planning Committee to talk about what kind of financing mechanisms we need, and to talk about, kind of how all that would play out. They've got some shoring up to do on that pro forma right now, so we're kind of working through that internally. On this project, TxDOT permit was also approved last week, so that is all squared away. I was, however, informed today, I got to speak with Terry Chenoweth, Dan Pleitz, our bond counsel, is retiring. So yeah, pretty short notice. I had talked to him a couple weeks ago. He didn't mention anything, but he's going to be retiring within a couple weeks. So we'll still be able to hang out with Naaman House Smith and Lee on this one. Andrew Clark is going to be our new bond counsel. Spoke with him this afternoon. So we've got a game plan to move forward. As you know, we really haven't been given any additional information from USDA on whether or not we're going to get grant funding, additional grant funding for this project, which is really going to be essential to make the numbers work for our customers, right? And so since we don't know what those numbers are going to look like, it's prudent of us to go ahead and issue another bond for the full amount, and in my opinion, additional funding on top of that, just in case, to give us a little bit of buffer. The problem is that, well, it's not a problem, but the state does require several notification processes with that. Council has to review the notice at one council meeting, then we have to wait 45 days minimum before y'all can even adopt a bond for that. So if we're looking at maybe 60, maybe 90 days to retain the bids after we get them, then we need to start that process now. Now, the good thing is that we don't have to use all of that loan. We can always use less than, and we're expecting, and we need to use less than, but we can't come back in and ask for more money outside of going through another bond process. So I will be bringing that before you probably at a city council meeting here in early April, once our attorney finishes drafting that up. I'll go ahead and pause right there and answer any questions that anybody might have on the sewer system before we keep rocking and rolling.
Anybody have any questions, or don't look like it?
Good to go. If you think of something later on the drive home, feel free to reach out.
Yeah.
That's usually where I do my best thinking. Water system. So the Falls County improvements, we did receive 30% construction plans for those for that project over the past couple of weeks. Gene and I got to review those and answer or provide a couple comments on that one. MRB expects to get to 90% by the end of this month or early April, so they're really tracking right along with that project. As a reminder, we plan to fund this project with our money from our grant that was allocated from the coronavirus local relief funds. We've already talked about Friendly Oaks. We'll talk a little bit about the lead and copper rule revised. Since we got the vac trailer, we've had staff out there in the field working through our compliance with this new regulation. For those of you who don't know, we have to inventory all of the pipes within our water system to be in compliance with TCEQ by October. So that vac trailer's been helping us dig up right there at the meter box to determine what kind of material is being used on the customer side and what kind of material is being used on the public side. And so all of that will eventually go into a report that's going to be published to the public so that they can see that we don't necessarily here in Bruceville-Eddy have a whole lot of lines, lead lines or galvanized lines. The new Falls County water well. So, as you know, at the last council meeting, y'all selected the site for this. Right after that meeting, MRB said, hey, I know we don't have a full game plan on how we're going to fund this project, so can we go ahead and submit a project information form to the Texas Water Development Board? And I said, how much is that going to cost us? And they said, usually we don't charge for that. I said, go right ahead, because the deadline for that was like in 1 week. So I said, okay, let's go ahead and just give it a shot and see what kind of attention we might be able to get from the Water Development Board. So that's in. It's not a formal grant application or loan application. It's just hey, this is our project. We're interested in applying at a later date. Would you be willing to accept us? So that's in. So it could be a component to our financing on this project. We did get to meet with the Cook sisters today. We had some questions come up about the specific site location for this water well. So I've got to get with our engineers and just shore that up and verify that it's going to be at a location where the property owner's okay with. And then after that, what I'd like to do is I'd get together a basic term sheet to be able to offer to the property owners, just so they can see what we're talking about as far as what the city's going to be offering and what they could potentially offer us, just to continue the conversation before we create any official contract on that one. And then I will answer any questions that you have on committees and development for the sake of time.
Yes, sir. I didn't see your hand up there.
My name's Brian. What did the outcome for the road getting over there? Did they, there was a problem about getting access to the well?
For the
Yeah, for the Falls County well?
Oh, the new site.
Yeah, for the
So
new
we
site.
we did talk a little bit about that today. The Cook family is open to different access sites, whether that's through Duty Field and connecting to that. I think everybody's favorite was connecting into 437, but they're also open to a longer connection to Highway 7. So the terms of that, we'll just have to kind of negotiate that out.
Any other questions? All right, moving right along. That's it? Okay. All right, number 9, our consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda will be considered by the City Council and will be enacted on by one motion. There will be no separate discussions of these items unless a council member or a member of the public so request. A, approval of minutes for February 22 of 2024. B, finances from February of 2024. C, police vehicle repair authorization. D, rafferty purchase, Long Star, maintenance and service, INC. E, interlocal corporation purchasing agreement for asphalt emissions. Do we have any? Okay, Mr. Wiggins?
You know, I do have a question on that D.
Okay.
Do I need to pull it?
If you,
Or-
yes, sir, we'll have to pull it if you have a question on it.
Is it just a quick question?
Yeah. I
Oh,
think so.
okay then.
I think it's just a quick question.
Okay,
It's-
yeah, go ahead. sir.
Okay, on that D, there was a delivery charge on there for $189. Is that something that we can't go pick up, our guys can't go pick that up? That cylinder, 150-pound cylinder?
I'm not 100% sure on that one.
Okay.
We can check on it, though.
Yeah, I just thought, well, you know, if that's something our guys can go pick up, because maybe they deliver it and then they pick the old one up. You know, I just don't know.
Yeah,
But I just,
okay.
that was my only question.
Okay, all right, so,
Other than
all in
that-
favor of accepting these? I mean,
Oh, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll make a
Okay,
motion
Mr.
to
McGruer.
accept the consent agenda.
okay, and Mr. McGruer seconded, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies. All right, let's see, okay, it is now 7:02, and this regular session is closed. It is now 7:02, and we have an open public hearing. Zoning from the single-family dwelling District 1 to General Business District 1611 Old Moody Road. Council to hear public comments pertaining to an owner-agent initial zoning change on property located at 1611 on Old Moody Road in Eddy, Texas 76524, containing a total of 4.2841 acres and further described as being located within the city limits of Bruceville-Eddy and in between Old Moody Road and Eagle Drive from the current destination of single-family dwelling District 1 district to General Business District. The public hearing is open to any interested person with opinions, objections, and/or comments related to this matter. Comments related to this matter may only be expressed via mail, email, or by appearing in person. Another person or attorney may also represent you. Okay. Do we have any discussions, or anyone want to say anything? moving
Short public hearing.
moving right along. It is 7:03, and the open public hearing is closed. It is 7:03, and our regular council meeting is now open. Number 12, zoning change from single-family dwelling District 1 to General Business District 1611 Old Moody Road at the request of the property owner agency. Council to discuss, consider, and possibly take action on ordinance 3-28-2024-3, changing the zoning classification of property located at 1610 Old Moody Road, Texas 76524, containing a total of 4.2841 acres, and further described as being located within the city limits of Bruceville-Eddy and in between Old Moody Road and Eagle Drive from the current destination of single-family dwelling District 1 District to General Business District, amending the official zoning map on the city of Bruceville-Eddy, McLennan County, Texas, to rightly reflect said changes. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Zoning change. So tonight, we do have a city-initiated zoning request here before you. So we had a property owner. They own the cell tower, or they own the land for the cell tower off of Old Moody, and they're wanting to upgrade that site to include some different components. And in staff's opinion, it was significant. So we initiated this zoning change because the property is currently legal non-conforming. That means that the property is being used for a cell phone tower, microwave tower. However, it is a single-family designated district. So you'll see here that we've got the request to go from SF to general business. And those are some of the highlights of a general business or a light industrial district. The owner did request either general business or light industrial. But as you can see down here in our use typage, that there's really no changes between a general business or light industrial. Both would be permitted by right there. And whereas in a single family district, there is no allowance for this type of business activity. So this is the property map here. It's that little triangle, if you've ever looked at the McLennan County CAD. For reference, this whole property here is what's being proposed by WBW to be developed at a future date. And we got Old Moody Road right here. You can see there that it's designated as single family, as is the rest of the area. So as I mentioned, this property is currently legal non-conforming. Cell tower has been there for many years. They're looking to upgrade a lot of components to 5G, which triggered this zoning designation to work with the existing use. The parcel is landlocked. That means it's not connected to the public right-of-way there. So I don't see this being used for any other purpose down the road. Just FYI, the way we published the notice in the paper and sent out all the mailings, we said that it would go single family to general business. So if there are any other zoning designations, we would need to send out those mailers again and to bring this back before council once again. In the midst of doing this zoning change, we were provided with a copy of the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act of 2012. Which basically informed us that we can't hold up this project for any zoning, as would be the case for a lot of other building proposals. So we sent this over to our attorneys. They confirmed. So we have already issued a building permit for the work, and it's already been reviewed by Bureau Veritas, already been released. And we do have a consultant representing the firm out here that could probably speak to whether or not that project has already started construction, but this zoning change is not contingent upon that work commencing. So as required by our zoning ordinance, proper notice of this application and hearing was published in the Waco Tribune-Herald. 6 notices were sent out to the adjacent property owners. This ordinance would amend the zoning map, and any structures would have to conform with our existing building regulation ordinances. And so with that, my recommendation is to approve the zoning change request.
Okay. Mr. Wiggins?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 3-28-2024-3, wherein we're changing the zoning classification from single-family dwelling District 1 to general business district.
Okay. Do I have a second? Okay, Mr. McGruer. Okay, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you, gentlemen.
No hot seat for you tonight. Thank you so much for coming out. You're welcome to
Thank
stay.
you. You're welcome to stay and listen to the rest of it. Okay. All right. Number 13, equipment and software contract. Axon Enterprise Incorporation. Council to discuss, consider, and possibly take action on a proposal for the police officer equipment purchase and/or contract with Axon Enterprises Incorporation. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome, sir.
Council, before y'all tonight, there's two proposals from Axon Enterprises. Just to give you all a little bit of background, we engaged with them back in 2019, and they've been our vendor for body cams and tasers. And I'll just throw out there that they've been awesome. They've worked very well. Especially with our body cams, they're something we use daily, and they're always on, and we've had absolutely zero issues with them in the last 5 years that we've been with this company. And they're probably one of the biggest names out there in, public safety equipment for body cams and dash cams and tasers, stuff like that. But we're in year 5 of our 5-year contract that we signed with them back in 2019. And the thing I like most about that is within those 5 years, they also include equipment, well, they call them equipment refreshes, but basically you turn in your old, like when they release a new generation of body camera or what have you, then during that contract, in the contract that we're in now, we've been given, we get the initial equipment, whenever in that first, right away, and then we get a hardware refresh at year 2.5 and a hardware refresh at year 5. So they're not only giving you the equipment you need, but they're keeping you up to date with their newest equipment. And just like, in the technology world, you can go out and buy the biggest and best computer, and 2 or 3 years down the road, they're already outdated. And that same thing applies to our equipment, especially to body cams and dash cams and things of that nature. They're on pretty much daily. And just like anything else in the technology world, after a few years, they're needing to be replaced. So with this, they call it the OSP, that's for the body cams and tasers. Because the tasers we have now, they don't refresh those, so the tasers we carry now are about 5 years old. And they've since had 2 new iterations of taser, because we have the H2, and then they released the Taser 7, and now the Taser 10. So with this new contract, we'd be going to the Taser 10, we'd have the newest, latest, and greatest, because they've made some pretty significant upgrades to the Taser. And, it is an important tool, because it's one of our less than lethal tools on our tool belt that we can use. So we would get that, as well as having the body cams. We'd get the body cam, the Axon Body 4 camera, which is their newest one. And then at year 2.5, we'd get the newest camera they have in there. Then again at year 5, we'll get another upgrade. So as it stands right now, we're due for an upgrade at our end of our contract, which is coming up in September. But I think they issue out the new equipment before that contract's up. But so if we sign a new contract with them, we'll pretty much be covered equipment-wise for the next 7.5 years, body cam-wise. The only thing that I did learn today that would change, it wouldn't change the total cost of the contract over, the total cost wouldn't change. The only thing that they informed me today is there is of course you can pay for it all up front, or you can pay it out interest-free through them for 5 years. The only change that I found out today would be with the first payment would be paying all the hardware cost up front. So that first year payment would be a little bit more, and I have that number for y'all if you'd like that. And then the next 4 payments would be less. So I have those numbers before me tonight. On the body cam and taser side, my recommendation would be to pay it out over 5 years. On the fleet side, to give you all a little bit of background on that, we did have some pretty old equipment, and then in 2021 we upgraded our in-car dash cameras with a vendor, Stalker Radar, that makes our radars and lidars. They had a product called Cop Tracks that we chose to get their product back in 2021, and over the last year or so, they have decided to completely phase out that product line, and so it is unfortunate, but they have honored their warranties and their product support for the terms that were given to us when we purchased the equipment and everything. So all that's been satisfied. They've kept their warranties and everything like that. But at the end of this past year, December 31st, 2023, their company decided to end all of their hardware support. So basically all their customer support, hardware support is shut down. And then at the end of 2024, they're going to end all their server support. So after that's done, they're basically going to be non-existent on that side. They're still, doing what they're known for is that all their other products. They're just completely phased out their dash cameras and body cam product line. With Axon, I like the fact that we would have all of our equipment under the same umbrella. It all come from the same, vendor. The body cams and in-car cameras will coexist with one another, and they'll work together so that they'll make the officer's job a little bit easier, and everything will sync up and work together. With the fleet cameras, we would get the hardware, and then in that 5-year contract, it also provides a hardware refresh at year 5. Also with those cameras, something that we don't have currently that would be a big benefit is their dash cameras have license plate reader technology, so we have LPR capability in all of our cars, so that it will scan every license plate that it sees. And it has some pretty incredible technology. I can't remember offhand how far it'll capture a plate, but it can capture a plate traveling like 140 miles an hour past it. So every time it sees a license plate, it'll scan it. We'll have that history, and then if there's a plate entered as stolen, we'll get an immediate hit on that, or a wanted person or what have you. We can then utilize the license plate information to provide us with that. So that's a tool there. But with the quote for the fleet cameras, of course, we have the same option to pay it out over 5 years, which is certainly an option to council. My recommendation would be, I talked to Esther today, our finance director, and we have approximately $206,000 in our asset forfeiture fund available. My recommendation to council would be to pay for the entire cost up front out of asset forfeiture for that, and then that will pay for everything 100%. So within that 5-year time frame, there'll be no additional cost at all. That covers everything: hardware, software, licensing, everything, warranties, everything like that. So if we pay that initial cost, write a check, pay it in full, we won't owe anything over the 5 years. And then at year 5, we'll get a hardware refresh, so we'll get the latest and greatest at year 5. And then at that time, we can decide if we want to do a similar contract moving forward, or we can just get the new equipment and then just maintain like the licensing, the annual licensing and storage fees associated with that moving forward. So there are some options out there. Or if council decides we could still utilize the forfeiture funds and just, make the annual payment. I just thought, in my mind, it'd be a little bit easier to just pay for it 100%, and then we can utilize the remaining funds in the future, because those funds will remain in a interest-bearing account, and whenever it comes time for like vehicle purchases in the future, we can use those funds for other items.
Chief Dorsey, I had a question for you real quick on
Yes, sir.
the tasers that comes with training.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah, it covers, they throw in there all the training. They throw in there, they'll send their staff and their trainers down, and they'll even put on training that's already covered in this contract to have someone within our department be, a taser instructor, and they'll come down, put on the training for all that, so myself or someone can become a taser instructor, and we can have all that training done in-house. And in that contract, it also provides all the training cartridges and everything that we need to do our annual training and everything like that.
Wonderful. Okay, Mr. Wiggins, you have a question?
Yes. Maybe I misunderstood. I thought I heard you say that if you didn't, I thought I heard you say it's going to be interest-free. If
Yes.
we decided not to pay for all of it, the yearly installments would be interest-free.
Yes, sir, there's no interest.
Okay. So with that said, why would we, I don't think we'd want to utilize all our money, because our money is drawing interest now.
Right, yes, sir.
So let's draw money on our money, interest
Right.
on our money, and then they're not going to charge us interest. I'd say let's pay it out. I mean, it's going to be roughly $29,000 a year
Right.
for both part one and part two, I'll say. Is that
Yes,
right?
sir.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I haven't added
Yeah.
both up, but,
Well, on the billing schedule, it
right,
shows
yes, sir.
you.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, on
Yeah.
that, on the information packet, I think it combined those.
Yeah.
And I didn't print that out, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
One thing I forgot to mention, trying to think,
But we can't be late after, does the interest accumulate over the 5 years if we don't make the payment in time? Sometimes those things do that, you
Right.
can borrow something and for interest-free for so long, and then if you miss your deadline, then all that interest from that comes up.
right, yeah, I mean, all the finance, I mean, it's not, I guess, the payment plan met the 5-year terms. I mean, that's all that's in-house through them.
That's
Yes.
correct. This is
Okay.
not a financing
And
plan.
that's what we've done the
Good.
last 5 years with them already.
Okay,
is
good.
doing the payments. And I remember what I was going to say. So on the OSP side, the body cam and taser side, they're going to invoice us for the first year in September of this year, and it'll be net 30 terms. So that first payment won't be due until October, sometime in October. So then that first payment will be made in our new fiscal year. And so on the payments, in our contract that we're in now, we've, made those payments to them. So we can just make sure we have, however we decide to pay for it, we can make sure the funds are allocated each year and budgeted out of the regular budget. Because I was thinking more along doing that contract out of our PD budget, and then doing the fleet side, the more expensive side, doing that out of asset forfeiture funds. But we can do it however council
Okay.
would like.
Councilman McGurr?
Yeah.
Oh, and you still have, he still got his question.
Okay, in our budget, we had budgeted 24,000 for this year's budget for the asset forfeiture, which we haven't used any of that.
Right, yes, sir.
So that first payment would come out in May, and that'd be over 17,000, so we'd still be within our budget. And the other payment for the second part wouldn't come until our or new budget year. In
Right.
October, you said.
Right, and that brings up a good point, because on the fleet side, on the car side, I wanted to go ahead and get that ball rolling, so they told me from the time of getting everything, approved and everything like that, it'd probably be 8 to 10 weeks before they install. So we would, that payment, that contract would initiate before our new fiscal year, but the body cam side will initiate, we'll be paying that in October in the new fiscal budget.
Okay.
Mr. McGrew, you had a question?
Sure. With the paying annually, I guess, or I guess that's what we're talking about, annually, or just pay it off all at once? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if we paid it annually, we'd still be able to use asset forfeiture money? Or does that now have to be in our budget for it to come out of the general fund or the police budget?
So I can answer that one there. We the budget committee or the budget representative would just, make a line item for that so that we can draw it out and apply it to that cost. each
And
year.
we would draw it from asset forfeiture?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it was really not a significant difference between paying annually or paying the whole thing off, other than the fact that you're drawing interest
Yes.
on the unused portion.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes,
What happens to that interest? Does that go back into the asset
Asset
forfeiture fund?
forfeiture.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, it is allowed for our asset forfeiture funds to draw interest, and then we earn, that goes back in the bank. So we can draw interest off those funds. It's legal to do that. And every year when we submit our report, that's something that they ask for, if it was drawn, what we've earned off that in investment, we report that back to them. And then the other thing I forgot to point out, is due to the amount, it's over that $50,000 threshold, so it would have to go out to bid, and they've provided us with the buy board information that would take care of that aspect.
Okay, all right,
I think Mr. Manton's gotten that out to everyone, the buy
Yes.
board.
yes. Okay, all right, anybody else have any questions? Mr. Griffin?
No.
Oh, okay. Anybody else have any questions? Mr. Wiggins has suggested that we do the yearly
I'll make a
thing.
motion.
Okay,
Yeah.
he's gonna make
Okay.
a motion now.
I'll make a motion that we purchase, I'm gonna say Plan 1 and Plan 2 of these, however, that we pay for them yearly,
Okay.
being the fact that they do not and will not charge us any interest
Yes,
over
sir.
the 5-year period
Yes, sir.
that it'll take to pay it all off.
Okay, do I have a?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Griffin made a second. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Chief.
And I just want to, thank and recognize, I appreciate everyone's support, not only from the community, but from, the council. We are a small department, but we have great equipment and we have great support. And I really want to recognize that and thank you all for that. Because every time we need something, I mean, y'all have always, understood and have been there for us and support us 100%. And we appreciate that very much.
Well, we appreciate you
We
guys too.
appreciate y'all. Let's keep in mind, Chief, that when it comes budget time, to be sure and plug these numbers in addition to some other funds.
sir.
Too. Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Okay, excuse me. Number 14, bed and breakfast and short-term rental facilities. Council to discuss, consider, and probably take action on ordinance 3-28-2024-1, creating new business regulations for bed and breakfast and short-term rental facilities to include an application process, licensing requirements, and penalties for failure to comply.
Mayor, thank you. Kick things off here. This was a council requested agenda item here. What we're talking about tonight is business regulations for bed and breakfast, short-term rentals.
So the purpose of this regulation would to provide procedures for private residents to rent to visitors on a short-term basis while ensuring at the same time that these rental types do not create adverse impacts to their neighbors. I'm sure everybody's heard a horror story or two. This ordinance would create new business regulations for bed and breakfasts, including those offered through those third-party websites that are so familiar to us now, Airbnb, Vrbo. This ordinance would go in effect immediately after publication in the Waco Tribune Herald as required by law. So some of the definitions that are included in this ordinance here, it's broken into 4 different categories. So first off, you've got bed and breakfast facilities. And it's split out into 2 from here in the bed and breakfast homestay establishment. And synopsis on this one is that it has less guest rooms and that it's owner occupied. The next one here is a bed and breakfast inn, which has room for additional guest rooms, but a resident manager must reside on the property and be present at the property during the duration of any short-term rental. In addition to this, outside of a traditional business, you've got folks who may want to lease out portions of their home or their entire house. A short-term rental is what we're defining that as, for a period of less than 30 consecutive days. So furthermore, we've broken this down into type 1 and type 2. The owner must reside in the primary structure in a type 1, and then in a type 2, the owner does not reside on the property. So some highlights of this ordinance. This does place occupancy limitations on the units. It requires a license to operate, creates application process with associated fees for staff reimbursement on the time it's going to take to approve those. Ensures distance separation between existing license holders. That way you don't have a whole street with nothing but short-term rentals. It will require a life safety inspection by the city. That's just to get in there and to make sure that you don't have crazy wires hanging out, septic or sewer line that's disconnected. It will also have a compliance deadline of October the 1st, 2024, and an annual renewal of that license. It does prohibit functions such as weddings or meetings in residentially zoned districts. And it requires a designated operator to be physically present in either Bell County, McLennan County, or Falls County in the case an issue arises. And that's specifically speaking for those short-term rental type 2, where there's nobody on the property. Some other things it addresses: signage, lighting, and parking concerns. So here's an example of a couple B&Bs that we currently have available. We've got one right now on Eagle Drive that is in operation. And then the B&B on Market Street just started up and running. So to break things down on our ordinances a little bit further and give you all some more context as we get into discussion here, this ordinance would not control the zoning or the land use. It's just going to control how a business operates, not necessarily where they can operate. However, it does have some references in this ordinance to specific zoning designations, i.e. parking in certain, if you're in a single family, you can have this much. If you're in a general business, you can have this much. Just so you know, bed and breakfasts, they're not currently listed in any of our ordinances except for the hotel occupancy tax. So they are currently subject to that tax. So I would just say the recommendation for myself, it's up to council on how these how these regulations are going to look. But I would say that if we pass these, we might want to look at our zoning ordinance as well to make sure that they're complementary and reflective of one another. And we would have to do that at a future meeting. So speaking on the zoning, and I'm sorry, I forgot to switch the top up there. Currently, I talked a little bit about that. B&B is not addressed. The city does not have any power to police their operations or where they operate currently. So tonight's ordinance would regulate how a B&B must operate, business regulations. At a future ordinance, we could regulate where a business such as this can operate. Why not make all these rules at the same time, right? That would make logical sense. However, state law requires specific notification and public hearing requirements when you make any changes to a zoning ordinance. So we can definitely do this. We're just going to have to kick the can a little bit further if we want to do it all at the same time. So council can choose to approach these regulations in tandem, the where and the how, They can do it piecemeal or not at all. If we do move forward with land use classifications, this would all be subject to council's desires, but you'll see that we would create a definition or a classification for each one of bed and breakfast and short-term rental types. And then we would, this is my initial recommendation on where they can operate. So a short-term rental type 2, got it permitted by right in single-family, manufactured housing zoned areas, and then permitted by right in general business and local retail. Whereas the bed and breakfast, those are all through conditional use permit. In the short-term rental type 2, i.e. the property owner is not on site, conditional use permit only. And that is the basics of my synopsis here. And so I'll open it up to Mayor.
Mr. McGurr, you have a question? I seen you grab
I
your
have
mic.
one.
Yeah.
I have one.
Okay. One of the concerns I have, looking at how we structured the different categories, are we opening the door to apartment complex, essentially, where an owner lives on the property by the way by the way the language is in the ordinance? And then what about hotels where an owner is the manager and lives on the property? A hotel, essentially, where there's an apartment attached to it for the owner, and then you have 15 rooms. Wouldn't that create a hotel situation?
So to address your first concern there, if council wanted to make sure that there were no bed and breakfast, Airbnb, Verbo style in a multifamily situation, then you'll definitely want to address the land use classifications. And you can see here, I've got the recommendation already as conditional use permit only for those. Or you could just remove the C there, and these areas here where it's blank, that's just outlawed completely. You don't even have a chance to move forward with that type of business activity. The second one there, a hotel is defined by greater than 6 rooms in our current ordinance, so you'd have to meet that threshold. But the way I'm hearing you describe that, I think it would fall under the bed and breakfast inn category if there was an owner attached to the building.
Right, and then, so that would be 15 rooms, no more than 15 rooms, essentially. So you're essentially kind of opening the door to a hotel situation?
Well, we already have land use classifications for a hotel. We don't have anything for a bed and breakfast where a meal is traditionally served.
Okay. All right, okay, thank you.
Mr. Prater, you have a question?
Wasn't this already on the agenda once before? And we agreed to owner be present, I believe, because we figured that the owner would keep the noise level down and have more control over this was already on the agenda once before.
Yes, sir. We did bring this to council in July of 2023, so not that long ago. But at that time, I was really just looking for clarification from council on land use classifications. Because we had an Airbnb operator starting, I didn't really have a place to put them in zoning. So I kind of wanted to bring that up to council and make aware. And I believe the motion on that one was to bring forth a formal ordinance recommendation.
Oh, that's what it was? Okay,
I
I
believe
didn't go
so.
back and research it, but I knew we had it on the board before.
Okay. All right. Is there any other questions? Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion on this, or? Mr. Wiggins? He seemed so enthused about that, did he not? Did he
Yeah.
not seem enthused about that?
Well, one thing I'll just, say that, and it's not that big a deal, but within this ordinance, if I'm understanding it right, in that section 4-05-007 E, section E, that we, the city, will have to provide the sign. Is that the way you read that?
Give me 1 minute to catch up with that.
It's, yeah. In the under the pink there.
Section E.
You made a copy of the ordinance too.
Yes, that is correct. So
Okay.
this sign references that designated operator.
Right.
So every bed and breakfast will have to have, basically, it's going to be a basic form, and it's going to say, this is the designated operator, this is how you contact them in case there's any issues.
Okay.
So we'll have to create an application for this, we'll have to create this form, safety inspection form for our future code enforcement officer to go out there and check it out.
Yeah. I think this will be good. It puts some restrictions on it and protections.
Okay. Yes, sir, you have a question?
Okay.
On the annual permits, it's gonna be once a year,
Yes, sir.
so they're gonna have to go out there and do a site inspection every year inside the house, in and out, correct?
That's correct.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Anybody- Mr. Wiggins?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 3-28-2024-1, and also to have Kent come back with the zoning, what is that, under 14?
Yes, sir, Exhibit 14A. zoning
Exhibit
ordinance.
14A to add that zoning codes to properly reflect the new classifications.
Yes, sir. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion.
Oh, yes, sir.
On that ordinance, is that owner have to be on site?
Well, it depends on which category they're going to fall under. So
Okay.
this ordinance will just regulate the how, right? If council would like to come back and say, we only want short-term rental type 1s or 2s in these certain zones, then you can do that. But for all intents and purposes, if there's somebody out there operating as a short-term rental type 2, all they have to do right now is just go through the licensing process.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it would
we-
be allowed.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Number 15, closure of the City Hall on April the 8th of 2024. Council will discuss, consider, and possibly take action to close City Hall on April the 8th of 2024 due to the solar eclipse. I'm going to let Mr. Wiggins talk about that. He put that on there, so we're already.
Okay. Yes. I did put that on there. I just wanted to have the whole council weigh in on it, was my thinking by putting it on there. And I don't think that we need to have, because we have employees that work outside of Bruceville-Eddy, and they don't need to be driving, April the 8th, if it's going to be as bad as they say it is. So I just make the motion that we just close City Hall down altogether and don't require, our employees to come in. Obviously our water and, employees are kind of on standby anyway.
They'll be here.
But that's my motion to just
Okay.
shut City Hall down on April the 8th.
I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. Prater seconded it? Seconded it, my goodness. All right, all in favor? Unanimous, okay. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies. Okay, 16, banking account changes. Council to discuss, consider, and possibly take action to establish new banking accounts with First National Bank of Moody for the purpose of separately accounting for designated proceeds from the hotel occupancy tax review, economic development sales, and use of tax revenue, the municipal street maintenance and repair sales and use tax revenue, approval of the creation of 3 separate and respectfully titled accounts. consolidating of the city investment account with the MRLA investment account, closure of the city investment account.
Mayor, thank you so much. So we've got a request here before you tonight, council, to switch up some of our banking accounts. And the primary reason we're doing this here is because we've got two new revenue streams that need to be properly accounted for and separate because their uses are very specific, and then we have reporting requirements as well that we'll have to meet. The hotel occupancy tax was established several years ago. There should have been a banking account set up for that one to keep those funds separate. However, the city has not collected any funds related to that in the history. So what we're proposing for you tonight is to create 3 accounts: hotel occupancy tax, EDC sales and use tax, and the street maintenance and repair tax funds or accounts. And then while we're at this, we thought we'd go ahead and just bring up an additional change. So with these new accounts, we've got additional requirements for reconciliation, auditing, and compliance. What we'd like to do is we have 2 investment accounts associated with our general fund. One's called the city investment account. It's got like $100,000 in there. And then we have the Marla investment account, which has about $2 million in there. And really they serve the same function. They're getting the same interest rate. And so we'd like to go ahead and close down the city investment account and just move that $100,000 or so over to Marla, just to get staff out of the additional paperwork that comes with more reconciliations, since we're going to be adding 3 new accounts to this.
Okay, any questions, Mr. Wiggins?
Okay, on that hotel tax, would we need to, with this new ordinance that we just put in place, would we need to put in there hotel / short-term rental, or will that cover it, or?
So the hotel occupancy tax language already addresses bed and breakfasts.
Okay.
And I think that'll cover the short-term rentals as well, or at least it has been for other cities. They're treating those as, you call them Airbnbs, but
Right.
breakfast.
Okay.
Do we have a recommendation or any more questions? Wake up over there.
Okay, I'll make a motion. I'll make a
I'm gonna
motion
get him.
That the city establish new banking accounts with First National Bank of Moody for the purpose of separating accounting for designated purposes from the hotel occupancy tax revenue, economic development sales, and use tax revenue, and the municipal street maintenance and repair sales and use tax revenue.
And then also included a closure.
Also in the let's see. Okay, consolidation of the city investment account and the MRLA investment account. Closure of the city investment account.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Wiggins, second. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Number 17, ordinance change of platting. Council discuss, consider, and possibly take action for the city administrator to get with our city attorney about drafting an ordinance that would require all plats to be submitted to the city by the 5th day of each month, and if that day falls on a weekend or holiday, then the following business day. This would allow the city council ample time to review any plat prior to the deadline of the shot clock. Any want to discuss it or anything, or do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Mr. McGraw.
Oh, go ahead.
You gonna do it? I can do it.
I make a motion that we accept the ordinance changes
Okay.
for the plating.
Okay. That way y'all can have time to see it before.
Yes,
you think.
most definitely.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Griffin seconded.
Pam's.
Yes, ma'am?
Okay, is this going by when the engineer gets it, or
When we get it in hand.
first?
So the idea would be to write up an ordinance to allow for plat submissions to occur on only one day of the month. So if somebody wants to submit a plat, we tell them it's only on the 5th of each month. Weekends excluded on
Yeah.
that one.
And then that gives
That way we don't get it 2 days before.
2 days before.
Before we're supposed
Correct.
to vote on it.
You're talking about the owner submitted then, because once it gets submitted, it goes to the engineer.
Correct.
So we don't know if it's approved
Until the engineer gets it to us.
until the engineer gets it, and it may take them 30 days, something might be wrong with
True.
it. So then how much time is the engineer gonna get it back to us for them to review?
That could be an issue.
Yeah, but usually about once they get it, once they review it and get it back to us, say they get it back to us the last week of the month, then we just wait until the 5th of next month and give them time to look at it till the next council meeting.
We have
But then
30 days from when it is considered
Yeah,
filed.
filed.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But if there's issues with it, then it's not approved by the engineer.
Would you,
But see, you've got to, once the engineer approves it, then it needs to come to the council to study it. So you gotta give them time and make sure, once it's approved by the engineer, that's when the clock starts.
When it's deemed filed. So there's the submission date, and that would be the 5th of every month. The engineer's going to review that for completeness, and if they deem that more information is needed, then it's not considered filed at that point. If everything's sufficient, then it's considered filed, and at that point, we have 30 days to act on that. Yeah, but that could happen a couple weeks into the process.
And then they may not get it completed until 2 or 3 days for the council meeting, so you're back in the same situation that the guys don't get it.
Depending on when that happened, it could put us there.
I
But
don't think so. I think, but if we make them submit it by the 5th of the month, that's the only time we're gonna take plats.
The citizens.
Yes, the developer or whoever.
Yeah.
And then by the time the engineer gets it, it's not considered filed until the engineer deems that everything is okay. Now, once he deems everything okay, it's considered filed, and then the 30-day shot clock starts. So we'll have 30 days from then, and most likely, if it's not gonna be right up against our regular meeting date.
well, just to
But
clarify.
that don't mean that we couldn't, have it earlier. We'd have to have a special call meeting.
I just don't want it to run into the fact where, okay, you say the clock starts time to turn it in. Well, wonder if come a week or 2 or 3 days before, engineer says, yes, it's approved, well, then they still have a shorter time before the next meeting. And you can't schedule it for the next, because it'll be 30 days to
Yeah,
before
but we could call a special call
We'd have to do a
meeting.
special call meeting.
We could have a special call meeting for
Because I
that
don't want it to run into what happened last time.
last time,
Sure.
yes.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
what
that's
we're
what
trying,
we're trying to
that's what
avoid.
we're trying to
Yeah,
prevent, but we could also, instead of saying the 5th, we could say the 28th or 29th of the month. In other words, right after our meeting.
regular one, okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Got all kinds of hands, okay.
That'd give another
Joyce, you
week
have a
or
question?
so. We-
Well, just a clarification. I didn't think, Kent, that we got the plat, that the citizens or the council got the plat until the engineers had completely signed off on it. That they didn't give it to us until the engineers had said, okay, we found these things wrong, we sent it back, and they corrected this many, but they didn't correct these two, so we sent it back again. Okay, now they've done all of that, so then we get it, the city council, and I thought that's when that started, that it wasn't we get it and then they check it and then, I didn't think that's how, am I misunderstanding?
It's a very convoluted,
yeah.
complicated process. I know it's making everybody's head spin, right? I'll try to break it down the best I can on this one. So a developer comes in, they've got a plat, they want to submit it. They could submit it on this date. Our engineers get it almost immediately. And at that point, they're going to see, do I have all the information I need to review this properly? If they don't have everything, then it's not considered filed, whether or not that there's any errors or issues that need to be corrected. But if they do have all the information that they need, and it's in accordance with our preliminary plat procedures, then they deem it filed. And at that point, we have 30 days to make take an action on that, or council does. But in that time period, the engineers are still reviewing it for accuracy. So it may take them 2 weeks during that process, and they say, okay, we finally got this finished. We see a couple issues with it, and this is what we're going to be sending to council. And so that could be 2 weeks before a council meeting, but it does give us a little bit more flexibility. And if we're going with some different subdivision ordinances, we can certainly look at maybe limiting that 30 days prior to a council meeting. That was such a sticking point on previous plats, to maybe 20 days. And so that would give us at least a 10-day period
To
where,
look at it.
yeah, to look at it on that one. Does that kind of address it? a
Yeah,
little bit?
that
Okay.
helps.
Did something change?
Pam, do you mind adjusting that down a little bit? It's still on Chief Dorsey's size.
Check those.
Because previous, it used to be the day I got it to the engineer, that engineer said he had 30 days to review it. And then when it came back, then I would put it on the agenda as soon as possible, and they would approve it.
That's
But that
essentially still the same.
engineer always said that he had to have 30 days to review it before he approved it. So
No.
is this
No,
different than?
the state law says that council has to act upon it within 30 days of it being
council has to.
filed. Now, it kind of gets down into these weeds on what's submitted and what's filed, but essentially, if council doesn't act upon it within 30 days of that date, then it's automatically approved.
Right, I understand. But his deal was, he had 30 days to approve it, and once it was approved, well, we had to vote on it within, because it went through the engineer and it was approved automatically. So it started the 30 days once it got approved.
Gotcha. So keep in mind that the state law on this has changed 3 times in the
That's what
past,
I'm trying to find
I
out.
think 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's all mostly been in the favor of the developer. Let's
Okay.
be honest on that.
I just didn't want it to, because you're saying the first of the month, well, yeah, you get it the first of the month, you take it to the engineer, but is he gonna get it back to us in time for the council to be able to approve it by the next council meeting, is what I'm getting at?
We won't
We
know
just hope
that.
so. We don't know.
Yeah, it's
Ms.
dependent.
Wiggins, you had a question?
You gotta come up to the mic, ma'am.
It's not me this time.
I think there's a difference between being filed and being submitted. You can submit it at any time, but being filed is when, I think, when the engineer actually approves it. I think that's the intent of the law, is for the 30 days from the time it's actually approved, that is when it's filed.
My understanding is that when it's filed, it has, the engineers have all of the information before them to review it. The submission and the submission calendar here would be the date that a plat can be turned in. Let's just call it turned in, and we'll call that submission, turned in with the fees and everything.
So you're saying once the engineer has the information, whether he approves it or not, that's when the 30 days starts?
When they have all the, when they have all the information they need to conduct the review.
That's what you're saying?
So, yeah, the engineer has to comply with that timeline.
Okay. Yes, ma'am, you had a question? It's hard to wrap your head around it sometimes.
It is very difficult in that the engineer has the full 30 days, and they have you over a barrel on when you have as a council to approve it or not approve the plat.
So cities across Texas are shaking their heads and scratching their heads with this law. I would recommend that y'all reach out to your legislatures and talk
Please.
to them, because these rules have been changed in their favor. And for anybody who's interested, I've got a platting and subdivision breakdown from TML that kind of explains all the nuances of this stuff. It's great reading. It really is. It might bring up some more questions. It might make you more confused.
Insomnia?
but- What's that?
Read it if you have insomnia?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. But
Okay.
it breaks down this nuance of submitted versus filed, and when the shot clock starts, and all that.
Yeah, okay, because I don't know if you could put that any plat that has been approved by the 5th of each of a month.
Say that one more time.
If a plat has been approved by the 5th of the month, that's when
Comes to council.
Shot clock from the
I don't. I
it
think
still would lengthen that day.
so. Local Government Code 212 in this little section here only authorizes us to create a submission calendar. I don't think it allows us to add additional time to it. It's very specific, and our city attorney is. I don't know. Think outside the box.
Can we put a stipulation
Okay, I
on
think,
it?
I think
Mr.
one of the
McGurr?
things we've kind of drifted off on this, we're trying to design an ordinance right now, when what we're asking is for permission to have our city administrator contact our attorney to draft a proposed ordinance. And so really, we're not drafting an ordinance, we're just saying we want the city administrator to get a hold with legal counsel and have legal counsel sit down and explain this, because I've read this, what he's got here, okay? And I'm telling you, I wasn't confused until I read this.
Okay, Ms.
But-
Pam? Okay.
Okay, but now, just keep in mind that our city attorney suggested this, that we could do this. Remember?
In executive.
Well,
We can't really talk about what that was done, because that was an executive session.
But our city attorney suggested to help us in the future that we could do something like this. So that's why I'm bringing this up.
Yeah, I realize that, and what I'm saying is, what we want to do is we want to have Kent go and talk to the attorney, and then they come up with something we can actually look at as an ordinance and say, this is what the ordinance says, and now we've learned from our discussion here, that ordinance should somehow show steps to be completed in order to reach that shot clock. But, I mean, that's just a suggestion for the meeting with the attorney. But I think at this point in time, I'd actually like to make a motion to,
We got the motion, and we have a motion, and we have a second. I'm just waiting to vote, because we've
Okay.
had questions. Ms. Pam?
Let me ask, would it be something we could change procedures, that once they came in and filed the deal, that everyone, the council members at that time, get the one that's not approved and be looking at it? So when the engineer comes back and says it's approved, and he tells what changes, then they're aware the change has been made? Because that shortens their time looking at it? I mean.
We could, but we're probably going to really muddy the waters in that, because as you know, some of those plats that we get on the front end are not anywhere near where they need to be.
Right.
And so if we were to provide that to council on the front end without all the hashing back and forth that we do with the developer to get the, just to get the the initial stuff knocked out before it even goes to the engineer, I think that would cause a lot of confusion, and people would, I think we would probably get into a situation, well, that's not what they originally proposed. And it's like, well, no, they've done a lot of hashing out to get into our compliance with the ordinance.
Yeah.
I was just trying to figure out a way for the council to have it longer to look at.
Sure.
Instead of getting, say, 1 week or a few days.
Sure.
All right, right now on the table, we have a motion to accept and for the city administrator to get with our city attorney about drafting an ordinance that would require all plats to be submitted to the city by the 5th day of each month. And if that day falls on a weekend or a holiday, then the following business day. This would allow the city council ample time to review any plat prior to the deadline of the shot clock. And so we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor of Kent doing this, okay? All in favor, yes, okay. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies.
And council, just so you're aware, I have requested this ordinance as of 3/5. I'm just waiting to get that more information back from from the city attorney, but I'll certainly provide this feedback from tonight's discussion into that as well.
Okay. All right. Number 18, establishment of a budget committee. Council discuss, consider, and probably take action on the city council appointing a budget committee which will consist of the mayor, 2 council members, city administrator, city finance director, city secretary, and each department head as it applies to their specific departments to work on the budget for the 2024-2025 budget year, and then bring to the entire council in a workshop meeting. I have a couple of recommendations on this one, and it'll be open to everybody. Before, we used to have just workshops where all the councils were involved in our budget. And we would have our workshops prior to, just come in and have our budget workshops. And they could discuss everything. They'd get their paper ahead of time where they could look at it. And this was done up till like 3 years ago. And you could discuss everything. You just couldn't call an employee by name, or you couldn't address how much this employee makes. That is the only backdraw on this part. If for some reason that they don't like that and they want to go back, y'all want to go back to make a motion to keep the budget committee, my recommendation is a council member only serve 2 years, and then we get 2 more. If we go this way, since Councilman Wiggins and Councilman Griffin have served 2 years, I recommend Councilman Brewer and Councilman Prater serve on the budget committee for 2024-2025, because I had been approached by council member that they would like to be on the budget committees. So since you can only have 2 council members, I was just suggesting maybe we have a time limit per council members. Now, anybody else? Mr. Wiggins.
Okay. Well, I think it works better with a committee versus, because when the committee does it, 2 council members and all these other ones she named or go back and work on the budget and then come to the council with the whole budget, and then the whole council gets to weigh in on it, just like they would if you had a full council. In other words, like she's talking about, the way it used to be, just the council came in. It's better, I believe, having 2 council members go back there, because it's pretty detailed. That budget gets into details, and it takes a while. And if you come out here and just a council meeting only in a workshop, man, it'll wear you out, them numbers. So therefore, I would rather see it with 2 council members as on the committee, along with these other ones.
Okay,
now, then to address the issue of, to address the issue of term limits, I'm opposed to that for the reason, like, I have been on it, so I'm aware of how it works and what's going on versus somebody who just goes into it. It's harder just going into it. My first year into it, it was like, wow, man, I'm all over the place. I'm more versed on it now than I was in my very first year. So I don't think you need to limit a council member to two years. I'll say this, the council is the one who appoints them, ma'am. So if the council wants to appoint the same two, then they have that right.
Yes, sir.
But
I have a right to make a recommendation.
No, I didn't say that.
Since I had two council members come
Yeah.
up and say they would like to be on that,
Okay.
and it wasn't you and Mr. Griffin, it was two other council members.
Okay.
So that's the reason I said I would recommend.
Yeah, but
Sir. Yes, sir.
you was just asking me, and I had the floor.
Yes, sir.
So I was explaining my thoughts.
Yes, sir.
Just as you did yours.
Yes, sir.
So, anyway, with that said, I'd like to leave it, like I said, with two council members, and I would still like to be on the committee.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we want to have two council members on here. Well, let's let Ricky stay on it and add one more. Take Mr. Griffin off and one of the others take his place. That way you alternate them and you got somebody that's been on it for 2 years or however long, and you get a newbie in there. Mr. Griffin or whoever's been there a while can help them understand how the whole process works.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your recommendation.
I like that a whole lot.
You like that one? All right. Okay, all right. Anybody else? Anybody want to, I don't know how to ask this because without upsetting anybody. Yes, ma'am.
What if all 5 council people would like to be on the committee? I think we need to have a process of which ones to select.
That's what they want to do. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I
So all
know
5 of you,
3.
Mr. Griffin, no, he says, no, I don't want to do it. But the other 4,
I think there's 3 people, 3 of them.
I do want to.
right, but say
Okay.
McGruer wants to, and Joyce wants to, and Prater wants to. What's the process to elect who's going to be on the committee?
Okay.
That's the question I'm posing to.
Yeah. Well, maybe
Vote on
it
it.
might be the 2 that doesn't want to be or hasn't asked to be on it. Maybe they can
But
recommend
maybe they
someone.
didn't know about asking to be on it.
Oh, well, true. It was
Okay.
out on there. That's true.
So,
Since they're new,
I
some
think,
of them.
yeah, I mean, Joyce may not have known that we're maybe changing the budget. Well, she may have read in the minutes or whatever.
Yes, ma'am. It's in.
Okay, so I think maybe either the council determines
Yes,
the
ma'am.
2 people.
Yes, ma'am. That's the
Well-
way it should be.
Okay. So,
Mr. Prater?
I tell you, I really like to have some experience in there because I don't think throwing 2 newbies in with a budget of that size, especially with me on it, I don't think it'd turn out pretty good.
Well,
huh?
you had just asked, about you'd like to be involved
Well,
in it.
before it was
Yeah.
when I said, yeah, I'd like to be on that process was when y'all was talking about everybody coming in.
Oh, yeah.
I said I would like to, I'd like to know what's going on with it,
Right.
but yeah, most definitely need some experience on
Yes,
it.
sir.
I
Okay,
believe.
thank you. Mrs. Wiggins?
I was just gonna agree with Richard. I work with auditors every day, and that is a big thing. As you know, as a council, y'all use Broadway, okay? You know, using, the company of it. You use Broadway only because they're experienced with y'all city books. And to get a new auditor to start for the first time, there's a lot of extra time involved in that, which equates to more money. So, yes, Richard, you're exactly right. When you have something like that, you need the experienced leadership in that department. It's just like an auditor that y'all,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
don't change auditors every year.
No, ma'am, we do not. Well, the reason I had brought it up is because I had been approached by a couple of council members that wanted to be on it. Now, if just one had approached me, I would say, oh, okay. But I had 2 council members, so, and we're only allowed 2. So that's why I recommended what I said. And Mr. McGruer?
Okay, if we have more than 2 now that want to be on the budget committee, then my recommendation would be we have essentially a ballot that goes to the 5 councilmen with the names that want to run. You pick 2 out of that. We tally it up, and the 2 with the most votes, that's who wins. I mean, if you're going to do it, that's
Well,
about the only way to
let-
break it down.
Let me ask this question. Mr. Griffin, Mr. Griffin,
Ma'am,
would you like to be on the Budget Committee?
no ma'am.
Mr. Prater, would you like to be on the Budget Committee?
No, ma'am.
Mrs. McLaughlin, would you like to be on the Budget Committee?
Yes, I would consider it, yes.
Okay. Mr. McGruer, would you like to be on the Budget Committee?
Yes.
And we know Mr. Wiggins would like to, so see, there's 3 now. Okay, so
You can't do it.
it can't do it with 3. I will make a recommendation again that we keep Mr. Wiggins and Mr. McGruer. No offense about Mrs. McLaughlin, but you're brand new.
I'm not offended.
You're brand new with the budget, and this is his going on your 2nd year, right? This is her 1st year. So I recommend those 2, but that's just my opinion. And it won't get you a cup of coffee. So all in favor of Mr. Can we do that?
You got to make a motion.
Oh, somebody needs to make a motion.
I'll make a motion. It's Mr. Wiggins, Mr. Greer on the Budget Committee.
Okay. All right, anybody second that? You can't second your name. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Unanimous, okay? You 2 gentlemen are there. Oh, you can vote.
Oh, I can vote on
You can vote for yourself.
it. No, I just didn't want to.
She said unanimous.
All right, okay, we got that. All right, employees, title change. Council to discuss, consider, and possibly take action on changing to employee job titles. Ms. McLaughlin, I believe this was your,
Yes. When I saw the change for the name, let's see, what is the official, Kent, what is that
what is
name
the
for?
official, what we have now?
It went from code inspector to community development
Yeah.
Specialist.
specialist.
So the background on that one is we've had part-time code enforcement officers in the past. About a year and a half ago, we decided to bring that code enforcement officer on full-time, but we obviously don't have that many code issues. I mean, yes, we do have some issues to deal with, but not quite that many. So the sale was to justify this position, also have them performing building inspections, some animal control activities, and all of our permitting as well. And so while we do still have references in our ordinances to code enforcement officer, animal control officer, building inspector, or building official, this term kind of is an umbrella term to cover all those in one position's title.
Well, the thing that, let me take this out. I feel like I'm bending down. Like say, if I went on to, like I didn't know anything, and I saw that my neighbor was doing something really they shouldn't be doing. They had something in their yard or animals, or there was this issue. And I wanted to find out who the code inspector was. I would not look up community developer. That would not, I would be wanting it listed under code enforcer or code inspector. And so I felt like it needed to have that in the title, Code Enforcement and Community Development Officer. I think would cover everything. Plus, we have a lot of issues with folks that don't want to follow the city ordinances. I mean, the officer gave us a whole list here, non-compliant, non-compliant, non-compliant. And so when you use words enforcement, I think it's a stronger meaning to it, that when people see that person show up and they know this is the code enforcement officer, this is a person that has authority, and that they'll be less likely to not comply or give that person more trouble, even though there are those that it doesn't matter, you know, if it was the sheriff. I mean, they're not going to be nice to them. But I just didn't like the watering down of the title. I like it to be more clear when people are looking for that on our website and looking what does this person do? If they're trying to look them up, they're not going to look up community developer. They're going to look for code enforcer, and they're not going to find it. It'll be more difficult. And so I like better the title Code Enforcement and Community Development Officer. I think that would make it more clear for people when they were trying to find who they were to contact.
So are you making a motion, ma'am?
Yes,
Making a motion, okay.
I make a motion that we change the title of Community Development Specialist to Code Enforcement and Community Development Officer.
Yes, ma'am?
We have a second.
I think Kent was trying to incorporate more than just the code enforcement, which is a big part of what we want to protect here. And I agree with how do people find what they're looking for. So the thought that came to me was compliance something. Compliance in the animal division, compliance in the code division, compliance in the building division. Something where instead of it just being specific to code enforcer, maybe something that was more encompassing that also addresses what you're trying to make available to the public. Okay? So to me, code enforcer is just all they do is enforce the city codes.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I added on the Community Development Officer. That way they're the code enforcement, but they're also the community development, and that has all the other things they do would be under
I
that.
guess the community development specialist didn't ring anything to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Well,
that's
what if we change like the online and put the three different things? Code enforcer, and then there's a number you call. Building inspector, a number you called. Animal control, a number you call. And we can still call them whatever we've been calling them. But just on our web page so people can find them. They know which one to look for. Mr. Prater.
Ain't they all gonna end up calling City Hall
Yes, sir.
and
Exactly.
saying, hey, I got this problem, who do I talk to?
Yes, sir.
That's what it's gonna end up to being.
Yes,
No
sir.
matter what the name is,
Amen.
it's still gonna be,
Well,
they're gonna have to
Title.
call
Yes,
the same
yes, sir.
place.
Yes, sir. Mr. Wiggins.
okay, I'll second her motion, and then we can have further discussion too. But with that, it's always been code and enforcement officer here, and our language and all of throughout our ordinances state code enforcement officer. So when Kent changed some language to read the community development officer, that added a few more duties also. So I think if we just say code enforcement officer, that's what people are used to. Around here, it's what they've been used to. That's what's in our ordinances, the language in there. And community / community development officer, I don't see no problem with that. I mean, it's not that, I don't think it's that great big of a deal.
Okay. Mr. Manton.
I'll just point out to council on that one, if that's the desire of council to have our ordinances line up with the official title, then you might want to look at saying code enforcement officer / building inspector / animal control officer, because our ordinances do specifically cite building inspector, they do cite animal control officer too, so
That's right, I
it
thought
would be a
maybe-
little muddy.
Maybe changing it on our webpage, to where, but when they
Well,
call
what is community development when you how that's rolled up? I mean, doesn't that cover pretty much everything? The community development and code enforcement, doesn't that cover everything?
Yes, sir, it's a generalized term.
Right.
Okay, Mr. McGruer.
Okay, we could actually have three separate positions. They're not full-time positions. You have three separate positions. So you have a code enforcement, you have building inspector, you have animal control, you have community development. It's one person who's going to have all those three jobs as part-time, essentially in each position, just like we have with the water department. You got a water department clerk slash court clerk. Okay, when it's a court matter, you're going to call the court and talk to the court clerk. But when it's a water issue, you're going to talk to the water department. Same person's answering the phone, but the title's there. If we become a major metropolis, maybe we'll have 4 people in those positions. Okay, but at this point in time, you have one person covering 4 jobs. And it'd be easier, so like I think it was Richard that was saying, when you call in, you get in the city. If you have an animal control issue, you go to animal control. The code enforcement officer is the one who's going to pick up that message, whatever you're calling. And so my point is you can have all those titles. It can be a different or a same person in each one of those titles, and it doesn't change anything.
I think to her point, it was that code enforcement, it kind of was a little bit stronger than community development.
Well, I think it should be more than
the
one.
word enforcement,
Yeah.
you know, it's a little stronger, and it, you know, I think that's her point. And I thought, you know what, if code enforcement / community development is, if that'll make people happy, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and argue all night about it.
Well,
over
people will have a
title.
clear understand, I think they'll automatically understand what that is. That's what they're used to. Whereas the other, I had people ask me, what is that?
Well, I'm going to throw 2 cents in there, and don't mean nothing. But right now, we have got the employment thing out there to hire somebody. We've had 1 application, and this person can do 2 out of the 3. Doesn't want the 3rd one. Most people won't even do it unless it's each job by itself. Nobody wants to come to work here for the city to do all 3 jobs because of one certain pay. And that's our problem we're having right now. We've only got 1 application, and it closes at the end of the month. So, you know, if we start changing it, my opinion is if we change it now, okay, and by the end of the month, if we get somebody and he or she goes, oh, well, I can do this and I can do the animal, but I can't do this. Or the one says, well, I can just do this and that's it. You know, then we're going to, if we hire one of those people like that, then the whole title's going to be changed again. It's either going to be just a code enforcer, or it's going to be a code enforcer / animal, or code enforcer / building inspector. You know, so it's just going to be hard. Right now we're having a hard time getting somebody to apply to go to work for us on all 3 things. So I mean, so I didn't know if we wanted maybe put this on hold until we see what our next employee is going to be. If it's going to be just code enforcer, or if it's, because you wouldn't want to give him the community thing if he's just code enforcer, or if they were just dog catcher.
We already have a motion. and a
Yeah,
second.
I'm gonna call for the
well, we can vote.
question.
Okay, sorry.
Call
I thought
for
we
the
I
question.
thought we could still, even though we had a first and a second, I thought we
Yeah.
could still ask
Well,
questions and talk about
that's-
it.
That's right, but
That's
I'm
right,
calling
isn't
for
it?
the question.
Okay, all right. Okay, so now I'll take a vote. All in favor that wants to change it from what we have now
To
to code enforcer / community, okay, developer officer. Development officer. 2, okay. Okay. So, and all, I guess,
You need to take the vote
I need to take for the ones that's not doing it.
in case there's an abstention.
To vote. All in favor of not doing this? 1, 2, 3, okay? All right. We'll wait till that, you know, and that way when we get our new employee, maybe we can maybe we got somebody that's gonna come in and take 4 or 5 things, which would be tickle me pink. Have my part. Okay, all right. Number 20, speed bump on 4th Street. Council to discuss, consider, and possibly take action to authorize staff to install a speed bump on 4th Street in between Anna Hobbs and Border. Okay, okay, let's see here. It is now 8:29. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. I'm sorry, because it has been a little while. So everybody can stretch their legs and cause for the pause. I'm gonna put you, I'm thinking about heading to the front one.
There'll be a line.
Yes, they will be. I just gotta stretch my legs is what I gotta do.
I've been sitting way too long.
That was your only duty for us.
That's what they're gonna be.
Why don't you call him just compliance officer? You have to comply with all your laws. Just call him a compliance officer. And that way he can enforce, dog, whatever you do.
Yeah.
Rubbish.
Could do it all.
Yeah.
Goes down to his arm and they just stop.
That would work.
They ain't taking it
That
out.
would work. I'm just thinking, when I thought of communities, you know what I think of when I think when you say community development? I think of somebody planting bushes. Yes. And, sweeping the streets and not trees.
And what you want to do.
Yes. And that's what this person does. Right. So I
But he won't do all
what they do.
That's what the pay is, $18. Now they don't want to work at McDonald's for less than $20 an hour. What are you gonna do with it? The city of Waco won't take it. They have to be caged up for a certain amount of time, yeah. See, somebody killed one yesterday.
We can't afford it.
Facebook.
We can't afford that.
You've seen two Eco babies.
That's not me charging.
Family dog grabs it and starts running upstairs.
Yeah.
I've researched some of the cities around here, their ordinances for animals, and the state laws too. And the city can,
Well, I understand.
or they have an option to keep it all in 72, you're saying? They have an option if they want to, but they can put the
new job, so I mean, I still work from home, but I'm in maintenance. So this week I've been up in Dallas.
I don't see him much, in other words.
Oh, and also,
So he don't know how
I don't have a vehicle right now, other than my company truck, and I ain't supposed to be driving it when I get home.
I'll go ahead. I drove my company truck everywhere.
But mine has GPS on it.
Oh, yeah. I could work for a company now.
But I feel like a bum because I can't do anything that I want to do or go somewhere because can't take me.
I seen a little scooter on Facebook the other day, brother.
Scooter?
Yeah, he looked good on those. Like, what was his name? Who ride that scooter? He used to be on city council.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I can't think of his name. Trey.
Trigg, Alan Trigg.
Yeah.
He ride that scooter on the chatterbox. He looked like a bear riding a scooter.
Skid steer. The skid steer. Yeah, that'd be the easiest if you want to.
Because my tractors take.
The skid steer will do it a lot faster, but we need to race them to haul it off.
The rock and the dirt.
You need a dump trailer.
Yeah. So I might just try to find somebody that does that kind of stuff.
What are you doing?
Well, you know, I call it my dam. It's built around the house. I hate that because the cross ties are rotten down, the rocks fall off.
You got James working for you now, don't you? He called me the other day, see if I had a chain so he could pull that rock off there.
When he pulled up, and he said, you still interested in it? And I said, yeah.
Oh, and it's like community.
So he said,
So you're gonna change it in?
that's all right. Give me a beat. He gave me a beat. I said,
No, we're on 20.
20. Well, I want to skip that one too. Okay. The speed bump on 4th Street. Well, I thought it was over with since I done mentioned it. Council to discuss, consider, and possibly take action to authorize staff to install a speed bump on 4th Street in between Anna Hobbs and Border. Okay, Kent, you got that?
Yes, Mayor. Thank you so much. So we've actually had several complaints of folks speeding on 4th Street. Of course, PD has responded to this. We've set up radar trailers. They've enforced traffic over there. And you would think just, I hate to say it, but the potholes that keep reoccurring and the washing
That they
boarding,
wouldn't speed.
you think that would slow them down, but apparently this is still
They
an
don't
issue.
want
And it's not just one source. We've got several complaints on that
They
one.
don't
So
want a speed bump that goes down. They want one that comes over.
maybe that's the issue. But the whole point is to mitigate the safety issues and to reduce that speed on 4th Street, which is a straightaway for the most part, and people can technically get up and running. Now there's no other stop signs from there until Market Street, correct? So that would also be another measure that we could take, is maybe installing an additional stop sign in between, say, or at Temple Street or Border Street. But the easiest solution I thought here was just to install a speed bump. The proposed location on this one would be between 708 and 706 4th Street. We can install a speed bump such as this, or we can create our own with a Durapatcher. Oh, Pam, do you mind clicking into the presentation?
His battery just
And
went.
is our microphones good to go for the online? Yeah. Okay, perfect. There we go. Okay. So for a little bit better reference here, this is 708 4th Street. This is 706 right here, and this would be the proposed location. You mind clicking back over there one more time? Either that or my battery's going out. There we go. So for reference, we would also want to order some signs to go along with this and the poles, just to inform motorists that the speed mitigating device is ahead, and that they would have to slow down or face the consequences of that. Cost estimate on this one is going to be anywhere from $500 to $1,500. That includes the poles, the signage, whether or not we go with a Durapatcher created material, or if we go with a pre-manufactured speed bump such as the one in the picture there.
I have a question.
Okay, Mr. Prater?
Is there any way that we can talk to the people on 4th Street? Because that's who it's gonna, I would like to put something out to the people that live on 4th Street and see if that's what they want.
Instead of just one
The
person?
speed bump might be more haversome for them than the speeders. I'd like to see what they felt about it.
Would you
rather
like
than
to
just,
invite them to a future council meeting, or send out a survey mailer? Or how
a
does it go about
survey
it?
mailer or something and find out what they, because I don't want to put one in there and then they all start complaining that, oh, now we got to drive across a speed bump because y'all can't keep them from speeding down. You know, I can see it already. I talked to a bunch of people over there and they complained to me also, but I'd like to find out from the people who really wants one and go with the majority on it.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I think that's a good idea. But could we put in there, give them a choice of speed bump or stop sign? That way they could, and you could kind of explain, you know, a stop sign would force people to have to stop, so they're gonna, you know, and where you would put it.
For
and all.
clarification, if council wants to move forward with this, would you want us just to do 4th Street or Anna Hobbs as well? Because that kind of connects and almost continues it at some point too. I'll just put it out there.
All right. Yes, sir.
I think the biggest problem is people coming off 107 and going down that road. Is where your main of your speeders are coming from. And there's really no place to put stop signs because there's no roads crossing within that point.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, Mr. Wiggins?
I don't think it's no different on 4th Street than it is 107 or any other street.
I agree.
We just need some enforcement. Maybe our police needs to target that street. You know, maybe that's not the right word, but to go out there and set up something, you know, pretty often and watch that street and maybe slow them down. That street is terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, a speed bump, like you said, it's the ones that, you know, the difference is because there, you know, there's a ditch, you know, there's a drop down where they dug across and put in water lines, I'll say, is what happened. And boy, I drive it every week. I drive that road, and it's terrible. And to put a speed bump in, I mean, the next thing we'll be putting them in other places too, or a stop sign. I don't think a stop sign would
I've-
work
I've-
either. I just think we need some enforcement
Yeah.
out there. That's my opinion.
Yeah. We've been talking with the chief, and he's been taking his radar, radar thing, you know, and he's been putting it out there to show people what they're speeding.
Yep. But you know what? If you show them on that ticket, they understand that ticket more.
That's true. It's more expensive.
Warning, not a warning.
A ticket.
The actual ticket.
When y'all put that radar box on Soul Circle, the kids were over there taking selfies with it on the side of it and running in front of it and stuff. So
Radar
it's,
trailers over on Hungry Hill right now.
Is it? Okay.
yeah, they was out there taking selfies and stuff with it.
I just think if you're gonna put a speed bump there, I think you're gonna have everybody in town.
Wanting one.
Wanting one. I think you're gonna be setting a precedence, because we've already had people on, Franklin saying, oh, people drive so fast, we need to have.
Soul Circle, they
Soul
called to us
Circle.
about
So I
wanting a
think
speed
we
bump.
need to really watch about setting a precedence
Yeah.
there.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay.
I th-
I'm sorry, Mr. Griffin.
I
Yes,
think
sir.
we need to stop sign at Temple Street on Fourth.
Fourth and Temple.
Yeah. Temple Street's pretty busy, and they come through to Fourth Street. That would help slow them down, put stop sign on Temple Street.
Like a four-way stop sign or something there?
Three-way.
Three-way stop
Three-way,
sign?
yeah.
Okay. Three-way stop sign? I mean, it's something to think about. Yes, sir. Okay. Anybody else have any suggestions or want to make a motion for a suggestion or maybe later on get this?
What?
Mr. McGurk?
Sure. One of the things that comes to mind, what we're doing is we're talking about speeders who are breaking the law already. You're going to put a stop sign up there. What you just did is give them another law to
Another
break.
law to break, yeah. Well, we could put those spikes across the road every so often.
I don't know, I see somebody, all these little cars we got going around now, I see somebody ripping their oil pan off or something, and
Those low riders.
we're in another lawsuit
Oh,
about
yeah.
some messed up vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I agree with Richard. I think we ought to send a little survey out to the people on
Who it's
Fourth
actually gonna be
Street.
affecting,
Okay.
yeah.
But you know, between these locations you're talking
Okay.
about,
Yeah, we could do that.
between Border and Anna Hobbs. if
Pam's
that's
got
where you're
nothing
talking
else
about,
better
let's
to
send
do.
it to those people. Well, or anybody else that
I know,
lives
I'm
on
just
there.
joking with her.
Fourth Street, I
Yes,
guess
sir.
anybody
I
that lives
agree.
on Fourth
I
Street.
agree. We need to send it out, take a little survey. Yeah.
And maybe tell them how high it would be, so, you know, people can think about, well, will my car clear that? You know, we're gonna put a so many inch, or would you consider?
If y'all get me my badge, I'll go door to door
Whatever
for you.
height they are, huh?
If y'all get me my badge, I'll go door to door for
We
you.
might not want to do that now, sir. No, we can definitely send out a survey letter.
Yeah, we'll send out a letter.
But I'll put it out there like this. I'd rather not put the specifics of the speed bump until y'all, kind of make a recommendation on this one. But maybe we could just put it out there. Are you against this completely? Would you like to see a speed bump? Would you like to see a stop sign, other traffic mitigation?
Yeah, I would like to know their thoughts on
We
it,
gotta
because
be
it's,
careful how we do that, because you will open it up to everybody wanting one.
Well, let me start with that. If y'all are okay with that and want to make a motion for that, and then and I'll bring that back to council at a future date. You can review all the comments and take it from there.
I'll make
the
that motion.
to,
All right. Mr. Prater makes a motion that Kent, our city administrator, to send out a letter, like a survey type letter, to find out what the citizens are wanting on 4th Street.
I'll second that.
Okay, Mr. McGurr second that. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Now we got 21.
22.
22.
Oh, that's right. We already done 21. Now we're on 22. Changes to the city administrator staff spending amount. Council discuss, consider, and probably take action on a request by the city administrator to increase spending limits for the city administrator and staff to $4,000 per transaction to allow for greater operational flexibility in light of inflammatory Pressures, excuse me, my tongue gets twisted. Preliminary on routine expenditures. Okay. You want to say something about that, Kent?
Yes, you know, I've got something to say here. And if it's ever not helpful, y'all just make sure y'all let me know, and I will stop this. But for reference here, we've had a staff spending limit, a city administrator spending limit since about 2021, if I'm correct. That's what the ordinance is indicating. As everybody knows, post-COVID inflation has not been a friend to anybody, and that's certainly true for myself and our staff, both personally and professionally. That $2,000 spending limit is starting to be a bit of a encumbrance to staff just purchasing regular materials such as the chlorine that we saw being ratified earlier, going out and buying any brass parts for our water system, our maintenance department purchasing rock loads or street patching materials. All of those are really just kind of pushing that 2,000 limit. So what I'd like to request is to bump that up to 4,000. And of course, we send all of this, anything that goes over the spending threshold, to council anyways, and there's multiple checks on this process, right? What you'll see here, this is codified under the city administrator's roles and responsibilities. So I'd like to move that up to 4,000, if that's amicable to council. We would have to bring forth a future ordinance to make this official because we're amending that. But just keep in mind that y'all still got plenty of checks on staff for our spending, right? We have council members signing checks. There has to be two parties to sign on that one. Monthly financial reports, annual budget adjustments that we do at the end of the year, yearly audit, our bank reconciliation process. So I think we still are able to maintain that transparency, but give staff a little bit more flexibility when we engage with vendors to buy those materials that we need.
Okay, we have Mr. Wiggins.
Okay, with that said, I don't disagree that, you know, times have changed. Things are higher now than they used to be. But keep in mind with that, even with the $2,000 limit, you know, we had issues with that in the past. I'm just going to say that. And it, you know, not trust Kent wholeheartedly, but Kent might not always be here. So when you do things like this, you have to look into the future, not just the employee at that time that's allowed to spend it. So I would say $3,000, you know, per transaction, and that's giving you some more leeway. And when you was talking about the chlorine thing, you know, it's $2,080-something. So I think I hadn't seen many cases that come across us that, you know, that the 3,000 wouldn't take care of. I just feel like 3,000 would be okay. That's just my opinion, man. There.
And that's $4,000 per transaction, not per month. Or 3,000 be 3,000.
Yeah, per transaction.
Per transaction
Okay,
with each
all right,
of them.
thank you. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Why can't you just have their supervisor, not the employee itself, but the supervisor, make that decision, give them the opportunity? Well, it's like mine is, I have a P card that has a pretty big limit, but they're trying to cut down because they're in the process of doing some stuff, and now anything over $1,500, my supervisor has to approve, and before it wasn't like that. But when it comes down to, say, 3,000, like you want to say, is go to the supervisor, he approves it, gives them permission to do it, give one person authorization to make that call instead of 5 or 6 or however.
Yes, sir.
Well, the reason for it, because the people you're looking at up here are the supervisors of the city. And so we can't do it. We're different than a company. You know, company don't have to answer for the taxpayers. We do. So I think that's why the 2,000 was initially built in there. You know, you have to have some type of figure. You can't just give them an open checkbook. And then when you do, somebody out there is going to come to the council and say, why did y'all allow that? Because y'all allowed it. And so, I would say just 3,000, and if it's over that, that's 3,000 per transaction now. And if it's over that, then I still say it needs to come back to the council, because we're accountable in the end.
I mean, to an extent, there is a way to get around it. If it costs $3,500, have one transaction 2,000, the other one 1,500, and you can get around that too.
So cities are a little bit different in that
Yeah.
fact that we cannot do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, that would be illegal.
Well, I'm just saying is, I know that gets done.
He wouldn't need
Yeah.
to change it to 4.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
just saying is,
Now, we do understand that, like, say, per se, in the water department, if one of them, the Gene comes up and he says, I've got to have this today or we can't get this well to going, and it costs me $3,300. Sometimes we can kind of make an executive session, I mean, not executive session, but an executive decision and go, okay, maybe we can do that, but we'll call let the council know what's going on, because we got to have that.
Right, and we can have an emergency meeting.
Yes, sir.
And only have to give 1 hour notice.
Yes,
on
that's
emergency
exactly.
meetings.
Yes, sir.
But when it comes to like our wells, to the safety and
Safety,
welfare of the public, which would,
Then
that
yeah,
wells
we
would
can
fall.
we can go
We
over-
could
go
call
there.
a
Yeah.
still meeting.
We can
but-
call it an emergency.
Yeah.
So we can do that, It's not, we're just, something like that. But anyway, we got it. 3,000 is good. I think. Or-
I'll make a
two.
motion to increase it to 3,000.
Okay.
I'll second.
Mr. Prater second that? Yes. 3,000 instead of 4, so let me put that there, 3,000. Okay, Wiggins and Prater, all in favor? Oh, excuse me.
Sorry, just one question for clarification on this one.
That's
Is
per
council okay
transaction.
with us starting this effective immediately and then bringing that ordinance before you? Or would you like me to have the ordinance before you
And then,
first, before we implement this change?
Well, I would like to see the ordinance, because it's what the ordinance says. It's kind of like, if we approve this, then we're approving what the ordinance said, and we don't even know what it's going to say.
okay, all right.
So,
All right, so if we bring it up at our next council meeting.
yeah,
whether it's a
we're
special
approving the
call or-
3,000 to put in the ordinance, and then bring the ordinance back to us for approval.
Before they can start using the 3,000.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Okay, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, 23, McLennan County 911 Emergency Assistant District nominees. Council discuss, consider, and possibly take action to make nominations to the Board of Managers of the McLennan County 911 Emergency Assistance District.
Thank you, Mayor. This is our last agenda item for the evening. McLennan County 911 Emergency Assistant District serves the residents of McLennan County, while Hot Cog provides services to those residents located in Falls County. Well, let's say businesses and properties. So by majority vote tonight, council should select one of the 3 nominees to serve. We have James Devlin. He's the current assistant city manager for the city of Hewitt and the former police chief. Ryan Holt, he is the current city of Waco assistant city manager and former police chief. And then Danielle McGruer is a city of Bruceville-Eddy and also has thrown her name into the nomination field.
Okay, yes, sir.
I do have one thing on this. I don't know if it pertains to this, but here probably about 3 or 4 months ago, there was a incident across where I live, and they called 911. They got disconnected the first time, called back. Then he got transferred twice. Then it took the ambulance to get there about 25 minutes for them to respond. And they had to come all the way from Waco. So I don't know if this pertains to this or not, but it's something to consider.
Sure. I would leave it at, something to consider in your nomination. I don't-
Danielle, she used to work for 911, I believe.
That is true. She used to work for Woodway 911.
Yeah, I believe so.
For about a year?
Actually,
maybe a year?
Danielle started out as a 911 operator for Flagstaff Police Department. Then she was a 911 operator for the Northern Arizona University Police Department. Then she came here to Texas and was a 911 operator for Woodway Police Department. She's been involved in law enforcement for a number of years. So she knows what's going on as an operator and what the challenges are as an operator for 911.
So what is this position? What is it they actually do?
So the Board of
This
Managers,
position.
think of them as the city council or the board of directors for a business. You've got an executive director that oversees the 911 district, and the city of Bruceville-Eddy is a member of that district, but the Board of Managers are the ones responsible for approving the financials or approving those policy decisions, where the executive director is the one who carries out the day-to-day operations.
All right. Does any of those people serve on it now?
Yes, both James Devlin and Ryan Holt are
Both serve.
current Board of Manager members, and they're both seeking reelection.
Two?
Two, just two.
Correct, two. Apologize for that error then.
It says one of the three. It's supposed to be two of the three. Yeah.
I'd like to have one of our own in there. If just me putting it out there, sounds like she got some experience.
Mr. Wiggins?
Okay, and I pulled up these two gentlemen, that James Devlin and Ryan Holt. And Ryan Holt, some of you may know, but he's been with the city of Waco in '96 as a police recruit, promoted to assistant police chief in 2008, appointed chief of police in 2016, then to assistant city manager in 2019, has a bachelor's of criminal justice from Stephen F. Austin State University and a master's degree in criminal justice from Tarleton State. So he holds a master peace officer certification from the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. He's well qualified.
Which one was that?
Well qualified. That's Mr. Ryan Holt.
Ryan Holt.
Yeah,
Ryan-
he's been
Ryan
around a
Holt.
long time,
Yes,
Yeah,
he's good.
and the other gentleman, Mr. Devlin,
Yep.
he began serving as the assistant city manager in January 2023 after 28 years of law enforcement experience.
28 years.
Yeah, he began his career with the city of Hewitt in 2009 as the deputy chief of police and was promoted to chief of police in 2012, where he served for the next 11 years. And he serves as the director for the MCC Law Enforcement Academy, as a board member of the MCEAD 911 district, served as a past Region 9 director. He graduated from the University of Charleston with a bachelor's degree in organizational leadership and a graduate of the Institute of Law Enforcement Administration Management College. So he's well versed, them two guys, and Danielle has actually worked in there. So,
How many?
one of our own, I'd say Mr. Holt and maybe Danielle.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be one of our own.
You said you wanted to say something?
Let me point out that Danielle has 2 bachelor's degrees, one in public administration. The most important thing that she would bring to that position would be that she's had boots on the ground. She knows what the 911 dispatcher needs. Most of you know I spent 40 years in law enforcement, but I'm not going to tell a dispatcher how to run a dispatching unit. There's no way, because I'm on the other end of the radio call, okay? You need to know what the frustrations are, what the needs are, and what works and what doesn't work for a law enforcement officer in the street, because that's the lifeline between the citizen and the responding unit. So having that knowledge, she would bring a lot to that board.
Yes,
All right.
that's why I
So-
said, that's
Yeah.
why I said Danielle, because she's had boots on the ground.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Mr. Wiggins has a motion on the floor to take Danielle
Ryan Holt.
McGurr and Ryan Holt.
I'll second.
Wait a
Second
minute,
that, Mr. Griffin did?
I was reading that up there, it says by majority vote, council should select one.
I know, it's supposed to be two
Well-
of the three. Supposed to
Okay,
be two of the three.
all right.
So who seconded the motion there?
I did.
Okay, Mr. Prater seconded that. Okay, all in favor, and you can't vote, sir? Oh, yes, ma'am. Ms. Wiggins?
oh.
Do these two that y'all are selecting, do they
Hey, wait till you get home and put knuckle bumps on his head.
Do these two that y'all are nominating, do they automatically get put on the board, or do they have to go, are they just nominees for all the cities to vote on?
Yes, ma'am. They're nominees. Vote will come later.
Yeah, yeah, they're just nominees.
I have one question. How many years does Danielle have with the 911 service?
I want to say she worked 4 years for Flagstaff PD, 3 years for NAU, and 1 or 2 years for Woodway Police Department.
Okay, thank you.
And she's also a certified dispatcher.
Okay, all in favor of the nominees for Ryan Holt and Danielle McGurr? We got a motion and we have a second, and all in favor? Okay. Yeah, he can't vote, yeah, okay,
He
great. We
abstained.
got 4 out of 5 because he can't vote for his own daughter. Okay.
I
and
make a
then
motion to adjourn.
You make a motion to adjourn, do we have
I
a second?
I second.
Okay, Joyce seconds that. All in favor, yay! All right. It is now 9:05 and this council meeting is over. Yeah. Yeah, for here.
Called a break because